Let's make our time here worthwhile. A brief thank you to town staff who've arranged things here at the meeting. In my experience, the staff always gives 100% to that endeavor. Also, thanks to WestfordCAT for setting up the audio-visual and for their excellent coverage of this event. And thank you to Westford Academy for making this space available to us. It's my job to ensure the fair and efficient running of the meeting. I'll start by explaining how the meeting will proceed and what we need to accomplish tonight. You, the voters, are town meeting. And town meeting is the legislative body of Westford. Town meeting passes our local laws and decides how to spend our money. We do this by discussing and voting each article in the town meeting warrant. Anyone registered to vote in Westford can participate in town meeting. Non-voters may attend but must sit in the designated areas. They cannot vote and may only speak on the issues if they're given specific permission by the meeting. All non-voters should be in room 101. There should not be any non-voters in this room. The meeting is being broadcast in room 101 for non-voters. Next slide, Steve. The warrant is a list of articles we'll discuss and is published well in advance of the meeting. It's our agenda for this evening. Each article in the warrant asks the voters a yes or no question. As each article comes up, I'll summarize the motion proposed as a possible answer, which the meeting will eventually vote to either accept or reject. Once a motion is seconded, discussion begins, and when discussion ends, we vote. The full text of all motions and the recommendations of relevant boards will be shown on the screen and is also in the lavender motions booklet that you can find available at the back of the room. Any voter can propose an amendment changing a motion during the course of debate. Simple amendments can be made verbally. All other amendments must be presented in writing after being stated at the microphone. There's a form for this in the back of the room. Amendments must be within the scope of the original warrant or they won't be allowed. Next slide. If you wish to speak or ask a question, approach any microphone and wait to be recognized by me. You may only speak from the microphones. Please do not call out from your seat or anywhere else on the floor. State your full name and full address, speak only to the motion being discussed, and don't repeat points already made by others. If you have previously spoken, please let others who have not speak first. Presenters explaining the motions to the meeting have up to 6 minutes to do so. Speakers from the floor have up to 2 minutes to comment or ask questions. You should state all of your points and ask all of your questions before responses are solicited. Questions and comments must be directed to me. There's no dialogue between speakers, and there should be no personal references or attacks on individuals. I can't force you to speak politely. It's your mother's job. But rude or disrespectful speech often has the unintended effect of causing voters to disregard the opinion of the speaker. If you wish to end debate and call for a vote after being recognized, you should simply say, "I wish to move the question," or something similar. Such a motion is not debatable and requires a 2/3 vote for approval. You may not address the meeting and then finish your comments with a motion to end debate by moving the question. A motion to move the question must be the only thing the speaker says on that trip to the microphone. I will not accept a motion to reconsider anything that has gone to a final vote unless the motion to reconsider is based on a clear technical or procedural error. Next slide. Votes will generally be counted using clickers, like this one, and I'll announce the results once they are in. During the voting, and while the votes are being tabulated, all voters must remain seated to ensure the accuracy of the vote. We have 2 meeting mentors here tonight. They're at the red flags in the center. They're available to answer procedural questions you might have during the meeting if you don't want to approach the microphone to ask, which you can also do. Please make use of this valuable resource. Mentors, can you stand up for a moment? There they are. Next slide. When you checked in, you were given a voting clicker. If you're a registered voter and you don't have a clicker, return to the teller's desk and they'll sort you out. your clicker with you at all times while at the meeting. Do not give your clicker to anyone else to hold, and do not agree to hold anyone's clicker for them. On leaving the meeting, please turn in your clickers at the return boxes by each door. Once you return your clicker, it won't be reissued to you. Also, every time we lose a clicker, it costs money. So it's particularly important that they all get returned. If you find you've accidentally taken a clicker home with you, please bring it to the town clerk's office as soon as you can after the meeting. There's no fine or penalty for being absent-minded. We just want them back. To vote using your clicker, you must wait until I say the voting is open. Once you hear those words, you can press either the green 1A button to vote yes or the red 2B button to vote no, and look for the OK in the LED screen. None of the other buttons on your clicker work. If you wish to change your vote at any time while the vote is still open, simply press the other button and the system will record your new vote. This option is available as long as the voting remains open. Once I say the voting is closed, your vote is permanently registered and you may no longer change it. Your clicker will only register the last vote you send for each motion. There's no way to vote twice. Before we start, I have two housekeeping motions. First, we'll be working from the lovely lavender special town meeting motions booklet, which you can find in the back of the room. The motions booklet lists the full text of all motions we'll be discussing, which will also be displayed on the screen behind me. In order to allow me to summarize each motion instead of reading every word to you aloud, may I have a motion to accept the wording as it's printed in the motions booklet for each article? Is there a second? We'll vote on this using our clickers for practice. If you agree to allow me to summarize the motions, which are printed in full in the motions booklet, when I say the voting is open, you'll press the green 1A button. If you disagree, you'll press the red 2B button. This is a simple majority vote. Okay, voting is now open. Voting is now closed. The motion passes. 456 yes, 25 no. Secondly, non-voters may not address the meeting without your permission. I'll ask now that town meeting allow speaker participation by town employees and town-hired consultants like town council or our town manager, who will be participating in our discussion by virtue of their positions. May I have a motion to allow those individuals to address the meeting? Is there a second? Okay, this needs a 2/3 majority to pass. We'll use our clickers again. If you want to allow those folks to speak, please press the green 1A button when I say voting is open. And if you don't want them to speak, press the red 2B button. Voting is now open. Folks, there are lots of seats in the front of the room. If you'd like to come and sit down, I need you to sit down in order to register your votes. So please take a seat somewhere in the room. Voting is now closed. The motion passes 405 to 92. Finally, I want to emphasize that every question is welcome. Please feel free to ask about the facts of any article or the particulars of any process we're following. If you have a question about something, that means other people probably do as well. And with that, please turn to page 3 of your lavender motions booklet so we can begin. Under Article 1, I have a motion that the town appropriate $11,477.55 to pay past fiscal year's unpaid bills from Reworld, Inc. for waste collection and disposal to be paid from the fiscal year 2026 waste collection and disposal budget as approved at the March 22nd, 2025 annual town meeting. Is there a second? Are there any questions or comments about this article? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Because this is paying a bill from a past fiscal year, it requires a 9/10 vote to pass. So when I say voting is open, please press the green 1A button if you want to vote yes, and the red 2B vote button if you want to vote no. Voting is now open. Okay. Voting is now closed. The motion passes 525 to 38. Under Article 2, I have a motion that the town raise and appropriate $134,000 to supplement the following operating budgets in fiscal year 2026. Select Board expenses, $1,000. Town Manager expenses, $23,000. Treasurer Collector expenses, $5,000. Legal Services expenses, $30,000. Technology expenses, $25,000. Wastewater treatment management expenses, $30,000. Veteran Services expenses, $20,000. And further, that the town appropriate from the ambulance enterprise retained earnings $9,600 to supplement ambulance enterprise expenses in the operating budget for fiscal year 2026. Is there a second to that motion? Are there any questions or comments about this article? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. This is a simple majority. When I say voting's open, you can either press the yes or no button. Voting is now open. Folks, if you're standing in the back of the room, please find a seat. It's important that you find a seat so your votes will be properly registered. There are plenty of seats up here. Voting is now closed. The motion passes 520 yes to 54 no. Okay. We're now at Article 3. There are 4 separate motions under Article 3, and we'll vote on each of them individually. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Is that microphone on?
Test, test, test. Wait a minute, now it is. Madam Moderator, I'm George Murray. I live at 14 Haywood Road in Westford, and I have an issue with Article 3, which I believe should be dismissed before.
George, it's not on the floor yet. I haven't gotten a second.
Well, I want to move to dismiss Article 3, and the motion should not be read because it's an illegal motion.
So there are 4 motions under Article 3. Are you addressing all 4 of them?
All of them.
Okay. What's the basis of your saying it's an illegal motion, George?
This is the 3rd time I've addressed this issue before town meeting in the last 10 or 12 years. The selectmen have a clearly stated policy posted on the town's website which says that articles voted upon at special town meeting need to meet 5 specific criteria in order to be considered by town meeting. The purpose of those items is to make sure that major expenditures on the part of the town go before annual town meeting where the budget is set and the turnout is generally much higher. And the 2 previous times that I brought it up, the motion was dismissed. The selectmen stated they would readdress the policy. My plea to them at that time was, look, if you're not going to adhere to it, just eliminate it. But they didn't. It's still in place and should be honored.
All right. Thank you, George. I'm going to take a moment to consult with counsel, okay? Okay. Council tells me that a policy of the select board is not binding on town meeting, and that the motion is legally on the warrant. If folks want to vote against it because it doesn't comply with the published policy of the select board, they're free to do that, or vote against it for any other reason for that matter, but that it's not illegally on the warrant because the policy cannot bind town meeting.
Through you, Madam Moderator, why do we have a policy then?
George, I'm not going to argue that. I'm just telling you that it is legally on the warrant based on council's opinion. So I think the motion to dismiss is out of order. All right, so back to reading the article. There are 4 separate motions under Article 3, and we'll vote on each of them individually. For the first motion under Article 3, I have a motion that the town appropriate from free cash $376,300 to provide for the following capital requests. $36,300 for firewall upgrades for the town and schools. $300,000 to purchase and equip a sidewalk tractor. There's no holds. We're going to talk about the whole motion together, so you don't have to hold. $40,000 to purchase a used compact loader with snow blower. And further, that the town vote to amend the vote taken pursuant to the third motion under Article 8 of the April 27, 2024 annual town meeting by rescinding the borrowing authorization of $532,050 to purchase and equip a new ambulance and replace it with an appropriation of the same amount from ambulance retained earnings. And further, that the town appropriate from Stormwater Enterprise the sum of $450,000 to provide for the design and construction of the Colonial Drive Bridge repair. Is there a second to the first motion under Article 3? Thank you. All right. I'll take questions and comments on any aspect of this first motion under Article 3. So you can question any of those things that you might have been trying to put a hold on, and then we'll move to the vote eventually. Yes, sir, at my right.
Oak Hill Road. So I'm questioning the $300,000 for the sidewalk tractor, and as a follow-up to that, I'm also going to question the $40,000.
Okay.
So the $300,000. The Finance Committee does not recommend unanimously. The capital, there was 3 dissenting votes on capital, so I'd like to know why the committees voted that way.
Yeah, we can get an answer to that. So Finance Committee and Capital Planning, can you explain your votes to recommend or not recommend under this article? Finance Committee, yep. Christina Green, Chair of the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee voted 7-0 not to recommend the $300,000 sidewalk tractor. We were concerned with, 1, the lack of a clear plan and policy for sidewalk clearing. 2, many of Westford's 63 miles of sidewalk are too narrow to be serviced by this proposed tractor. 3, added costs from expanding the fleet, including maintenance and equipment replacement. 4, this is a high price tag if we're only continuing with the 3.8 miles under the pilot program, which is currently being plowed. So given these factors and the rising costs in other areas of the town budget, the committee feels that expanding services beyond the pilot program is not justified at this time.
Thank you. Did that answer your question? Or the Capital Planning Committee? Is there somebody from Capital Planning? Oh, so, right behind you.
That's the...
Right behind you. Can you approach the microphone?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
3 of us voted against this.
I'm sorry, can you identify yourself?
Oh, sorry. Jamie Holmes. I'm on Capital Planning Committee. three of us voted against this for similar reasons to what Christina just mentioned. But from my understanding, the pilot program for sidewalk snow removal included less than 10% of the sidewalks in town. It wasn't clear in the proposal if that amount would increase, as it was difficult to estimate since the pilot program was done by an outside contractor. And I don't think we have enough information that would include overtime, what sidewalks would or could be included, and the estimated costs of repairs and maintenance on the machine.
Thank you.
Can we follow that up with the dissenters on the $40,000 item? So it was the Finance Committee recommends 6-1 and the Capital Planning Committee recommends 7-6.
So you're asking the same question for the $40,000 item. Is that right?
Say that again? I'm sorry.
You're asking the same question?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. Christina Green, Finance Committee.
So I was the dissenting vote on the Finance Committee for the $40,000 sidewalk tractor, and kind of the same reasons as I gave for the $300,000, that we did not have a complete plan, that it was a pilot program, and I didn't think that it was fair that we only plow 3.8 miles of sidewalk when we've got several others in other areas that wouldn't have been plowed.
And capital planning, is there somebody who can speak to capital planning?
Get your steps in, right?
Jamie Holmes again, same reasons, concerns over the amount of the sidewalk that could be plowed and whatnot.
Thank you. At the center microphone, I'm going to go on to the next person. At the center microphone?
Yeah, I agree with this, actually with what George was saying about this is, oh, I'm sorry. Doug Burns, 4 Black Bear Lane.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay.
And that motion's already been, that's already been decided. So if you have a comment about the motion that's on the floor, feel free to make it, but we're not going to go back and review that.
Oh, the motion to get rid of this?
Yes. As I mentioned to George, council tells me that it's legally on the warrant, and there's no further discussion as to whether or not this is legally on the warrant.
Okay.
Thank you. The microphone to my left.
Hi, Ryan Rawl, 62 Providence Road. I have a question which may follow up with a motion, but the question is, are we voting on each of these line items individually in this article?
Not unless somebody moves to have them divided from the question.
Then I would move, because I think there's a substantial difference between first-time purchases for certain items that people have concerns about, and, for example, the ambulance, which seems to be changing the funding source. And so I would move to vote on each one individually.
Second.
Okay. Yes? Right. Okay, so we have a motion to take each of these items separately. That means there are going to be 5 items. So if you are in favor of dividing this question into the 5 separate items that are listed here, you're going to vote yes. If you would like to keep them as they are, all together for one single vote, you're going to vote no. Is everybody clear on what we're voting on now? Okay. Just bear with us a minute while we plug this into the computer so the vote gets registered correctly. This requires a simple majority. Voting is now open. If you want to separate these into 5 separate votes, you'll vote yes. If you want to keep them together as one vote, you'll vote no. Voting's open, so go ahead. Whichever way. Voting is now closed. The motion passes 503 to 132, so we're going to vote on these separately. Let's try and go through them one by one. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Moderator, Elisa Nakashin, Holsburg, Betty Lane. Many of us are seeing a significant delay in these votes registering. May I request that maybe you could say voting is about to close so we could let you know if it has
I will
registered?
do that.
Thank you so much.
All right, so let's see if we can get through these efficiently. If anybody has questions about, I'm sorry, sir, if you want to speak, you have to go to a microphone. Yes, well, no, the motion that's on the floor has been separated now into 5 motions. That's the vote that we just took. So now we are going to make a motion for the first item, which is $36,300 for the firewall upgrades for the town and school. Can I have a second to that motion? All right. Does anyone have questions about the firewall upgrades for the town and school? To my left, do you guys, anybody over there have questions about the firewall upgrades? Okay, step back from the microphone, please. Yes, Scott. No? Okay. All right, seeing no questions, I'll call for the vote. This is a simple majority. When I say the voting is open, you can vote yes with the green 1A button or no with the red 2B button. Ready? Voting is open. And I will give you a 5-second warning when I'm going to shut the vote down.
So I have the other ones built out, I just got to do the construction.
Okay, great.
It's the only one that I have.
All right, I'm going to close the voting in 5 seconds. So make your last choice now. Voting is now closed. The motion passes 595 to 49. Let's move to the second motion, which is $300,000 for a sidewalk tractor, to purchase and equip a sidewalk tractor. Is there a second to that motion? Anybody have any questions about the sidewalk tractor? Yes, Scott.
Extending road. The question is, this is not really a pilot study. We've been plowing these roads for years, so I guess the question is, what was the value of that contract to the contractor that we were paying to plow it, and what's plan B if this fails? How do we plow them at all?
Can we get an answer to that? Department of Public Works. Kyle Fox, Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Kyle Fox, Public Works Director. So the reason this is before a special town meeting is we learned late September that our contracted service provider could no longer provide this service for us this year. In each of the last 2 bids, we only had that single bidder. So without a contractor and without equipment, we figured it warranted being at special town meeting. So to answer Scott's questions, the contracted service last year was $38,500. And that's what we were presuming for this year. And that comes out of the snow and ice budget. The proposed tractor cost $300,000, and we're estimating about $6,000 per year in overtime costs out of the snow and ice budget. And if you look over a 10-year look ahead, so 10 years at $40,000 for the contractor is $40,000, and that would do the 3.8 miles of sidewalk that we currently do. With the sidewalk tractor, it would be $300,000 plus $6,000 times 10 years, or $360,000 over the 10-year period, which is $40,000 cheaper. And we would get a piece of equipment that would allow us to do as much sidewalks as we're able to after every given storm. And it would give us the additional benefit of improving our roadside mowing program throughout the year, which would be a big boon to everyone. So I hope that answered the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. At the center microphone.
Paul Fossbender, 14 Texas Road. If we do approve this, can we order and take possession of this in time to use it this winter?
I'll have Kyle answer that again.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, our vendor tells us it's a 45-day delivery time, so we would have it for this winter.
Thank you. Dennis, are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Dennis Galvin, 90 Concord Road. I'm on the Finance Committee, but I'm not speaking for the Finance Committee, speaking for myself on this. I did listen to the meeting involving the appropriation when it was before the Finance Committee. And I think I would go harken back a little bit to what George Murray said, and that is that as we're looking at these capital expenditures on this warrant, this is a significant amount of capital expenditures. We have received information from the state of Massachusetts or Mass Municipal Association that revenues and state aid and anything is very tentative for this fall. And I think the reason I would urge that we not vote for this $300,000 expenditure is simply because we need to be able to look at the full context of how this is going to fit in with a bigger budget picture in the spring. I think I would suggest that we hold this back and look at it back in the spring. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Are there any other questions? Did you have, Nate, do you have? Okay, okay. Seeing no other questions, we'll take the vote on this. If you want to vote yes for the purchase and equip of a sidewalk tractor, you'll press the green 1A. If you want to vote no, the red 2B. Ready? Voting is open. 5 seconds and we'll close the vote. Voting is closed. The motion fails, 474 no to 163 yes. If someone is saying that their clicker is not registering, go out to the tellers in the hallway and they'll check your clicker for you. All right. The third motion is $40,000 to purchase a used compact loader with a snow blower. Is there a second to that motion? Any questions or comments? Nate?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Nate McKinnon, 8 Sherlock Lane, also a member of the Finance Committee. I am not speaking on behalf of the Finance Committee, speaking for myself. I was one of the 6 members of the Finance Committee that voted to support the $40,000 used compact loader, and my reasoning for that I think is important for this conversation is that the previous vendor, as Director Fox mentioned, will simply not be doing the sidewalks this year. So without some solution, those sidewalks will go unplowed, and that's why I felt this was reasonable to approve.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll take the vote. When I say voting is open, press the green 1A for yes and the red 2B for no. Voting is now open. Okay. 5 seconds till voting closes. Okay, voting is now closed. The motion passes 475 yes to 165 no. Folks, just as an explanation, the tabulating is taking longer than usual because we were set up to use the PAC as well, and the system goes through all of those clickers, even though they're not being used, before it comes up with the final vote. So my apologies for that, but that's the reason why it's taking a little longer than usual. Okay, our next motion is that the town vote to amend the vote taken pursuant to the third motion under Article 8 of the April 27, 2024 annual town meeting by rescinding the borrowing authorization of $532,050 to purchase and equip a new ambulance and replace it with an appropriation of the same amount from ambulance retained earnings. Is there a second to that motion? We're going to get a very brief explanation of this from Finance Director Dan O'Donnell.
All right, so back in 2024, we didn't have enough in the ambulance retained earnings to purchase the ambulance outright. However, order times take several years to actually get the ambulance in. This particular one we're not expected to receive until January of 2027. So we thought it was best to authorize a bond at time so we could place the order for the ambulance. Now that we have sufficient retained earnings in the ambulance enterprise, we want to rescind that bond and then appropriate the retained earnings to pay for it outright. And this will save on borrowing costs.
Any questions or comments on this article? I think we'll try this with a voice vote to save some time. All in favor of this article, please say aye. I think that's a non-voter. All who are opposed, please say nay. The motion passes. It's not unanimous. Okay. But please don't have the kids answer because on a close vote it could be confusing. Okay, let's move to the next motion. That the town appropriate from Stormwater Enterprise the sum of $450,000 to provide for the design and construction of Colonial Drive Bridge repair. Is there a second to that motion? Are there any questions about this motion? Let's try a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion passes. It is not unanimous. All right. We're now at the second motion under Article 3. I have a motion that the town appropriate the sum of $1,150,000 to purchase and install synthetic turf at the Nutting Road Community Fields and to remove and dispose of the existing turf, and that the town be authorized to borrow and issue bonds therefore. Is there a second to the second motion under Article 3? All right. Director of DPW Kyle Fox has a brief presentation for this.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Good evening. Kyle Fox, Public Works Director, here to talk about the Nutting Turf Field replacement. Next slide, please. So first, a little history on the existing turf field. The fields were constructed in 2012 for a total cost of $1.28 million. $1.21 million of that came from community preservation funds. The other $70,000 was from donations. The facility has 4.6 acres of playing surface, and the total partial area is about 7 acres. And so when the turf was bought, it was estimated to have a useful life of about 8 to 10 years. And this past season, we just completed our 14th season. Next slide, please. So knowing the field was getting a little older in years, we thought it prudent to perform some safety testing to make sure our athletes were safe. So we did what's called a GMAX test of the two fields back in December of last year. What the GMAX test is, it measures the shock attenuation of a synthetic or a grass surface to assess the hardness of the surface with respect to player impacts with the surface. When we did the testing, the results we received ranged, typically, stepping back, so readings on a GMAX scale typically range between 130, which is a really good safe surface, to 200, which is a failing surface. And that's an ASTM recommendation. There is a second standard that many folks are using now of a GMAX value of 165 is the upper limit, and that's proposed by the Synthetic Turf Council, and it's actually the number the NFL uses as well. Next slide, please. So when we received the results from that December test, we we're not really happy with the results. So 10 of the 20 readings were over 200, which is that failing number for the ASTM test. And all of the readings were over that 165 value. In fact, the average for the two fields together was 194, really close to that $200 level. Next slide, please. So we reached out to a contractor. He had actually worked on the original field installation, got some quotes for some remediation, knowing that the 2025 season was going to come up pretty quick. And he made some recommendations, which included cutting out 4 sections of turf, which were in front of all of the lacrosse goal mouths, taking those out, putting new turf into those 4 areas, adding some rubber to the surface, and doing some additional grooming. And that cost us about $22,000 last year. And then we retested the GMAX values after that service on April 6th of this year. Next slide, please. So the results did improve significantly, which was good news because we felt we could open the field safely. But the results still weren't great. We still had 2 readings over that 200 fail level, and 16 of the readings were over the 165 NFL and synthetic turf council level, and the average dropped from 194 down to 177. So still fairly high. So that was the reason we wanted to bring it to town meeting in the spring, which resulted in a about 65% approval of the project, but it required 2/3 vote due to the request for a bond. Next slide, please. So following the results at town meeting, the Park and Rec Commission asked me to do a comprehensive presentation comparing the field replacement as either a grass surface or a turf surface. That presentation was made at the May 5th, 2025 Park and Rec Commission meeting. It was very well attended, both in person and online. That was really a response to the resolution that was made at the Springtown meeting. So in the presentation, there was a cost analysis of both options, pros and cons for playability, environmental concerns, and just about everything we could think of. At the conclusion of that meeting, the Park and Rec Commission unanimously voted to move forward with the turf option, and that's what we proceeded with. Next slide, please. So over the past number of months, we've been creating a bid specification for a turf field that was both safe for players and safe for the environment. The biggest safety impact for the players is we're requiring a shock pad to be placed under this surface, whereas the current surface does not have one. That shock pad, just as you might imagine, negates that impact when a player lands on the surface. Additionally, we required PFAS-free products, safe toxin levels for metals, PAH levels, and we're requiring certification of all of those things. And additionally, we've phrased it a number of times in the specification, but the existing field is definitively not to be landfilled. It was important to members of the community and to us that the turf and the infill, which is sand and rubber, to also be recycled. And one of the key aspects of it is for 12 years, the 12-year warranty period for the turf, it's guaranteed to have a GMAX value of less than 165. So it'll be safe for the players. Next slide, please. So we put the bid out, we advertised the bid in September. We opened bids on October 9th, and we received 6 bids from 5 vendors. The bids ranged from a low of just over $1 million to a high of just over 1.3 million, much less than the estimate, which was really good news. And we noted in the contract that it was contingent upon special town meeting approval. If it should be approved tonight, our contractor is ready to go. He would start work in November and be finished with the project by April 30, which would delay the start of the season next spring, probably by a month or so, but still pretty good turnaround. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Questions and comments? To my right.
Madam Chair, thank you for being here, and thank you to everyone who's here tonight. We have a big turnout. One thing I wanted to propose was an end to debate, as we've already thoroughly debated this, not only at a town meeting, but a special meeting as well. I believe we have a number of children who don't get a say in this. They're all here outside. I want to speak for the children, make sure they're safe, and see if we can move this directly to a vote. And thank you very much for the time. Appreciate everyone who showed up tonight.
Are you making a motion to move the question?
I am.
Okay, I'm not going to accept that. Although it was thoroughly discussed at the last meeting, there may very well be different people here than the people who were there. So I think we need to at least have some discussion and allow people to comment and answer their questions. But thank you for the motion.
Thank you.
Senator microphone.
Doug Barnes, 4 Black Bear Lane. I am tired of this town coming up and asking us over and over and over to vote on things. You did it with the library, you're doing it here. Not even 6 months or whatever, in April, we voted no. Why is the Parks Commission trying to come up and force this down the voters' throat again, hoping for a different answer? I'd really like to understand why. We voted no. Why not even a year later, I mean, spring to fall, you're back here again. We know what's coming up at next year's meeting.
So, Doug, is that your question? Why
is this even on the...
Okay, got it. Can somebody answer why this is on the warrant again?
Hi, Chris Barrett. I'm the chair of the Park and Rec Commission. So after hearing from voters at the annual town meeting, one of the things that was made loud and clear was a resolution that they wanted to see a comparison of the cost of replacing the fields with grass versus using artificial turf. So as Kyle pointed out, we had public meetings which we went over that in detail. At the end of the day, these fields need to be replaced. We have to do this. There's no question of just letting them go and become unusable. Too many people in this community utilize this resource. So we're trying to address that need in a methodical and thoughtful way. We would love to see everybody support this evening. It is an important community resource. There has been a lot of public engagement and thought and dialogue about this, and it is important that we see it done now because we need to have a safe playing surface for the kids next season.
Thank you.
How many?
At the mic, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, stop. Okay, all that's doing is wasting our time. Clap with your vote. Boo with your vote. But no need to waste everyone's time by cheering or booing. So let's cut that out, okay? At the microphone to my left.
Margaret Whaler, 171 Depot Street. I appreciate the new information that I'm getting from this presentation, and I was just curious whether the GMAX ratings vary by sport, football, lacrosse versus soccer.
Someone answer that, please. Kyle?
So I don't have that exact answer. What I do have is the 2 standards that have been presented to us.
Thank you.
At the microphone to my right.
Arnie Price, Oak Hill Road. I just have 2 questions for Kyle. The first question is, where did the $2.1 million come from at the previous town meeting? Was that bids that were sent out by DPW?
Okay, and your second question?
Just a good question. Or was that through a consultant? And like, why the vast difference? You know, the huge difference in the 2 numbers.
Kyle, can you answer that?
I sure can, thank you. So the first part to the question is whenever we're proposing a project, we work with partners in the industry to develop what's called a budget estimate. It was not bid. And we actually reached out to 2 different architectural and engineering firms for proposals for doing the engineering, the bid process, the construction inspection, and an estimate of what they thought the project would be. Both consultants actually came back with that same $2.1 million figure, which is what we brought to town meeting. Circling to this cycle, we ended up doing the bid preparation ourselves, and we're planning to do the inspection ourselves, which saves about $100,000 in estimated cost from that $2.1 million budget. And additionally, once we went to a competitive bid scenario, we were pleasantly surprised with the bid results. And I would say one other piece of information to add to that. 3 years ago, when we started this process, we did get a budget estimate cost from an actual contractor of $1.3 million. So the scenarios have been all right around that range, but consultants, knowing that when you approve money in a town meeting setting, you have to estimate a little high because you don't want to come back for more money.
So just as a follow-up to your response, so we paid these consultants to bring us $1 million estimate over what the actual cost is. Why are we paying the consultants? I mean, we could do it ourselves and save the money we paid the consultants, and it came in $1 million less.
We did not pay the consultants. We work with a lot of vendors that provide services for us in bid proposals, just because they know they want to work with towns and help us out. So we have not spent $1 on bid preparation or consultant services for this project.
But they receive a fee from the town, right?
All right, thank you, Kyle.
No fees at all.
At the microphone to my left.
Hi, my name is Ursula Caney. I'm on 8 Colonial Drive. My question is, does the town make money on these fields? And if so, how much?
So the town makes money on all of our athletic fields through the athletic programs. They pay permit fees that go into the 650 revolving fund. Those fees are used each year to pay for things like the testing and the rehab we did this spring. We pay for our seed, our fertilizer, our marking paints, the porta potties at all the fields. So we use those funds for a variety of different things. I think the revenue is about $80,000 a year, and we take in slightly more revenue than we do expenditures in each given year.
Okay, at the center microphone.
Hi, Ryan Rawl, 62 Providence Road. I actually have a follow-up to that because that was going to be my question, but the second part of it would be, is there any plans in the Department of Public Works when we get this brand new field to work on increasing the monetization where possible to make more money off the turf? Because we know from sort of the description of the pros and cons that you can use this field longer. Tournaments are more likely to use this field and pay money for it because weather is not sort of as non-permitting, so more people are willing to book a turf field for a larger scale tournament and pay higher fees. So I guess my question is the town looking into making more money if we approve a new turf field?
Thanks. Town Manager Kristen Lass.
Good evening, Town Manager Kristen Lass. Thank you for the question. We are looking at our fees across all of our organization, specifically in Parks and Rec, but in all of our other departments as well. So thank you for that question. We don't have any answers right now, but we are doing a fee analysis.
Thank you. At the microphone to my right.
Louise Waldron Carter, 8 Nutting Road. This is the first time I've spoken at town meeting, so I'm really nervous. My question is, and now I can't remember it.
Don't be nervous.
Okay. My question is, not everyone was able to see the Park and Recreation meeting where the differences in costs were shown for the grass field versus the turf field, and I was wondering if it's possible to show here at this special town meeting what those different prices were, which had led the Parks and Recreation Commission to decide on the turf fields.
So I think the question is, what is the difference in cost?
Yeah. I'm nervous too, so you're in good company. So we don't have that presentation queued up, but I can speak to it largely. So back when we did the presentation, we still thought the turf field was going to be around $2.1 million, and the grass field was going to be a similar amount, again, from the same consultants. What's additionally factors into that, if we moved it to a grass surface, part of the presentation indicated my belief that we would need an additional heavy equipment operator to take care of that additional 4.5 acres of surface that we don't take care of today. It's a lot of work. Our crews are very busy maintaining all of the town's athletic fields, town common, public building grounds, and monuments, and everything else that comes up in between. So over a 25 and 50-year look ahead, even with the more frequent synthetic turf replacements over a grass surface, it was actually cheaper. In addition, the playability factor came into play. Turf surface is far more consistent in playability for the athletes. Anyone who plays on Jack Walsh Field knows that the grass is longer than players would like. The surface can be uneven at times because a lot of money hasn't been put into it. And to have an equivalent playability surface, a lot of money, maintenance money, would need to be put into the new grass surface to maintain it as it would be when it's brand new. And finally, the amount of use that you can put on a grass field versus a turf field, it's about a 2 or 3 to 1 difference. So if we were going to turn it into a grass field and expect the same number of sports teams to be able to use it, we would need to acquire land, build facilities for at least one more 7-acre parcel, and perhaps 2, to make things equal.
Thank you, Kyle. At the microphone to my left. I'm sorry, I think I missed you before.
Erica Cole, Francis Hill Road. I have a question about I was pleased to see that there is an ability to not landfill the current field, but I'm wondering what happens about the new one that comes in, and when that wears out, is that going to be landfilled? I mean, are we just, what is it?
Yeah, we'll get an answer to that.
So I can't answer that question today. That'll be a question for 12 to 15 years from now, but I can share that talking with different vendors through this process, they know this is an issue in their industry, and there are more and more recycling opportunities for these turfs coming on board every day. So it is something the turf industry is aware of and looking to continue to improve on.
Thank you, Kyle. At the center microphone.
So Doug Barnes, 4 Black Bear Lane again. I know that this is going to pass because of the response we got. We've got a stacked meeting, which is why you don't vote serially like we're doing. I've coached the teams in Westford for 10 years on Jack Walsh, on Abbott, and I never had a player go down with an injury. Maybe I'm lucky, but there were the synthetic fields that were being put in at the end of my tenure, and I don't see that. How many fields do we have? How many? What are we talking?
Is that your question, Doug?
So I'm going to have multi-parts like other people did.
I need you to stick with 1 or 2 questions because this is not the first time you've spoken, and there are many other people who want to speak as well. So let's get your question and get it answered.
I could answer the second part last time. That's why I got back in line. So how many fields do we have? So you're talking 2 out of how many?
So the nutting field is our primary lacrosse field, and for soccer fields we primarily use nutting and Jack Walsh.
So you don't use Abbott anymore, you don't use any of those fields anymore? Is that what I'm hearing? Because I see players out there.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Chris Barrett, Chair of the Park and Rec Commission. Abbott and the school fields are under the authority of the school department, so you would have to direct the question to those folks to answer that. We're just talking about the town fields at this point.
Okay, so I'm asking how many fields does the recreation department use every
I think
year.
Kyle answered that.
Yep.
He
He started it.
So Kyle did answer the question. Our primary fields are the Nutting Road facility and Jack Walsh.
Okay.
For soccer and lacrosse.
Okay, thank you for your question. At the microphone to my right.
Steve Taylor, 54R Tenny Road. I want to thank the committee for bringing this in front of all of us. When a child's safety is in question, I will vote every single time and show up to vote every single time. My question is relative to maintenance. Have you included maintenance with this contract? Because I understand the time to buy right now, as being someone who's in the industry, is right now because they are the cheapest prices we've seen in probably 6 or 8 years when you factor in escalation.
So there's no maintenance program per se. Our parks maintenance team does do maintenance on the turf field, and we did include new equipment for grooming, a magnet to pull metals out of it, and drag it to remove impurities and trash, and keep it groomed. So we did include that in the bid price.
Thank you.
Thank you. At the microphone to my left.
Hi, Dave Troiano, 55 Graniteville. Love this motion. I support it, and I'd like to move the question.
All right, we have a motion to move the question. Is there a second? This motion is not debatable. It requires a 2/3 majority in order to pass. Moving the question means we will stop debate and go immediately to a vote without any further comments or questions. If you want to stop debate and move directly to the vote, you'll vote yes on this motion to move the question. If you want to continue debate and discuss this further, you'll vote no. Does everybody understand what we're voting on? Okay. This is a motion to move the question, which means that if it passes, we will stop debate, we'll terminate debate, and move directly to a vote on the question itself, whether or not you want to pay to fund these fields. If you vote no, debate will continue until until nobody has any more questions or I determine we've had enough discussion, and then we'll vote. Now is everybody clear on what we're voting on? Okay, great. So, yes, it's a 2/3 majority to move the question. Moving the question has to pass by a 2/3 majority. So when I say voting is open, if you want to terminate debate and then move to voting on the underlying question, you'll vote yes. If you want to discuss this more, you'll vote no. Voting is now open. It may take a few seconds for you to get the okay in your screen, and I don't think doing this makes it any better. 5 seconds and we'll close the vote. Okay, voting is closed. The motion passes to move the question 617 to 70. So now we'll go directly to voting on the underlying motion, which is spending $1,150,000 to purchase and install synthetic turf at Nutting Field. Does everybody know what we're voting on now? We are now voting on the underlying question. All right. When I say voting is open, okay, voting is now open. Guys, sit down. I love having students here, but you have to follow the rules. I'm not encouraging anybody to do this, but I suspect 1 or 2 people may leave after this vote. And if you do, I just want to let you know that we're happy to have you for as long as you can come. And if you need to leave, that's fine. It's better to participate even for a few moments than to not participate at all. We make important decisions here all the time, and I hope to see a lot of people back. All right, I'm going to close the vote in 5 seconds. And please, no matter which way it goes, no demonstrations, please. Okay. Voting is closed. The motion passes 562 to 131. All right. We're now on the third motion under Article 3. And the third, please, if you're leaving, leave quietly. Please respect the voters who are staying and leave quietly. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Drop the clickers off.
Don't forget to drop your clickers off on your way out if you're leaving. Please don't take your clickers with you. There's a box at the door. Thank you. Quietly, please. All right. We're at the third motion under Article 3. Both the third and fourth motion under Article 3 pertain to equipment requested by the fire department. I'm going to read through the motions and we can discuss them together, but at the end of the discussion, we'll vote on them separately. For the third motion under Article 3, I have a motion that the town appropriate $1 million to purchase and equip a new fire truck, and to meet this appropriation, that the town be authorized to borrow and issue bonds therefore. And for the fourth motion under Article 3, I have a motion that the town appropriate $1,450,000 to purchase and equip a new rescue pumper truck, and to meet this appropriation to borrow and issue bonds therefore. To get a motion on the floor for discussion, is there a second to the third motion under Article 3? Okay. Are there questions or comments about the third and or fourth motion under Article 3? Yes, at the center microphone, Megan.
Megan O'Connell, 44 South Chelmsford Road. Just a question on the 2 fire trucks that are being requested. Can you confirm whether they're both needed now or several years down the road?
We'll get Fire Chief Mike Dennehy to answer that question. I see he's coming up with his sidekick, Matt Spadek.
Good evening, Mike Denny, Fire Chief. Right now, we're at a critical state with our fire apparatus. We have 2 spares, reserve pieces that we cannot utilize. So the $1 million would be to purchase a reserve to take place for those 2 that we can't utilize. And the $1.45 million would be to order one that we won't get for 1,500 days. And that would be to replace one of the trucks on a replacement schedule.
Okay, and I guess at the center microphone.
Stephen Canales, 5 Swanson Lane. Just a question on this and pretty much is there any consideration given to put funds in place to replace stuff? This is depreciation, we all know what that is. So stuff wears out. So we shouldn't be surprised by an extra $1 million for a fire truck, a turf field, the name of, thousands of other things. So how's that work?
Let's get the Finance Director, Dan O'Donnell, to answer that.
Okay, Dan.
So we're requesting to authorize bonds for these. So we pay these over the next 15 years. We do have a capital stabilization fund with a balance of around $600,000 that, could be used for other capital, but it's severely limited to all of our capital needs. So our history, we have just borrowed for these fire trucks as they've come due on a replacement schedule and paid them off over 15 years.
Okay.
At the microphone to my left, I'm sorry I missed you before.
No problem. Anita Bala from Meadow Lane. I have a similar question. So can he explain a little bit more about how the bonds are going to be paid for? So is that going to be coming out of the budgets from the future years? Or is it from the revenue associated with these different streams?
Sure. So the process that we use is that we place the order for the fire truck for the $1.4 million. In 1,500 days, when the truck comes in, we'll actually borrow funds to pay the vendor. Then the year after, we'll be paying the first debt payment. So we're talking about a debt payment probably in FY30. So it is part of our future expense stream. But one of the trucks is going to be far in the future, and the other one, if we can find one that's available, would be for FY27, most likely.
So historically, has the revenue been able to make up the cost of these capital projects?
Yes, debt service budget typically increases a little bit each year to pay for the ongoing capital costs. Inflation is very high right now, so the costs keep increasing. So we are appropriating more debt to pay for these capital needs.
So do we have a collective group of all the capital projects that is going to be in the next 5 to 10 years that we are looking at collectively so we know what the costs are going to be?
Yes, we do. Well, the capital committee reviews requests each year and makes a recommendation to the town manager. We do have a database that we maintain that tracks all the requests for 5 years. We are currently working on a 10-year database to further enhance that.
So somebody can actually take a look at it and see what the 5-year outlay or 10-year outlay is going to be for the city? so we can, as a long-term view?
Yes, if you look at the capital planning packets online, we provide an update every meeting, so I would recommend looking there for that.
Okay, thank you.
At the center microphone.
Paul Fossbender, 14 Texas Road. How exactly are we taxpayers paying for this? Is this something that comes out of our basic property tax, or is this considered excluded debt, which will be in addition?
We'll get Dan up here again. He should have just stayed.
Sorry. It's non-excluded debt, which is within our tax levy.
Great, thank you.
And at the microphone to my left.
Hi, Ryan Rawls, 62 Providence Road. Real quick, are we voting separately on the third and fourth, even though we're hearing debate on
Yes, we are. We're going to vote on the third motion first, and then we'll separately vote on the fourth.
Okay, my question is on the fourth, which is the
That's
future.
okay. We're discussing them together. We're just going to vote separately.
Okay, so my question is about, this is a long time to wait for a fire truck, and if I know anything about Massachusetts, they love to change the regulations and compliance down the road for future anything. So I guess my question is, does the contract we're planning to sign guarantee that it will be compliant with Massachusetts law and any requirements regarding fire engines when it's produced, so that we're not agreeing to approve something that may not be in compliance?
That's an excellent question, and you're absolutely...
introduce yourself.
Oh, my name is Matt Svatek. I am the Deputy Fire Chief here in the town of Westford. That is an excellent question, and there are no guarantees in life, although this would be purchased under a contract, and in that contract there will be specific language. There are also opt-outs in the contract as the date draws closer to going into production.
Okay, so I guess a follow-up, just to be clear, is, and I don't know who's drafting the contract, but my understanding is that the language of the contract will basically say you need to provide a product that complies with Massachusetts legal requirements for a fire engine?
Most of these fire engines are governed under the NFPA, the National Fire Protection, and emission standards, for instance, are also national standards, so there's not a lot that will come from Massachusetts standards. There's much larger governing bodies that will be taking care of those items, but yes, the contract is written from and agreed to by the town and the manufacturer of the company.
So I guess my final question, because you brought up emission standards, and this is actually something that's percolating in other states about changing emission standards for large trucks, while fire trucks have generally been exempt from that. I guess I'm asking, who's the person for the town who's going to draft the language for the contract, and can they speak at all to whether they're planning to push for this provision? I just want some, I know there's no guarantees, but
We'll get the town manager to answer that.
Kristen Last, Town Manager. So it is my responsibility to work with Town Council to draft the contract to make sure that it's mutually agreed upon between the town and the contractor, and that we are protected into the future.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I'll call for the vote. This is the third motion under Article 3 that we're voting on. So this is just the motion for $1 million to purchase and equip a new fire truck. The third motion under Article 3. Does everybody know what we're voting on? Okay. When I say voting is open, you can vote. Voting is now open. Five seconds, I'm closing the vote. Okay. Voting is now closed. The motion passes 420 to 66. 420 yes to 66 no. We're now going to move to the fourth motion under Article 3. This is the motion for $1,450,000 to purchase and equip a new pumper truck. I think we've had the full discussion. Don't seem to be any other questions, so I'm going to move to the vote. Oh, I need a second. Thank you. We'll move to the vote. If you're in favor, vote yes. If you're opposed, vote no. Voting is now open. This is a 2/3 vote. I'm going to close the vote in 5 seconds. Voting is now closed. The motion passes 403 yes to 74 no. Okay, the next 4 articles involve zoning bylaw changes. There are detailed handouts for each one. If you're leaving, please leave quietly, and thank you for coming. There are detailed handouts for each of the zoning bylaws that are coming up in the back of the room. Under Article 4, I have a motion that the town vote to amend sections 3.3 and 10.0 and appendices B and D of the zoning bylaw to bring the town into consistency with changes made to Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, under the Affordable Homes Act. This is all shown in the gray handout titled 2025 Special Town Meeting Article 4 Handout, Proposed Changes Related to Accessory Dwelling Units. Is there a second to the motion under Article 4? All right. Jeff Morissette, Assistant Town Manager for Land Use Planning, will explain this a little bit to us.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Article 4 proposes to amend the zoning bylaw relative to accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. Though ADUs were once commonly referred to as in-law apartments, there is no requirement that the occupants of the principal and accessory dwelling units be related. Our bylaw currently allows for 1 ADU per lot in most of our zoning districts, and that's through the grant of a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Special permits are discretionary. The board is not obligated to grant the permit. In August of 2024, the Affordable Homes Act was signed into law, which amended Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40A, otherwise known as the Zoning Act, and it created a new category of ADUs called Protected Use ADUs. As of February 2nd, 2025, protected use ADUs are allowed in many of our zoning districts as of right. As of right means that there is no discretion to deny the ADU, provided that the typical permitting requirements, such as for wetlands, septic systems, and building code, are met. To qualify as a protected use ADU, the ADU must not be larger than 50% of the gross floor area of the principal dwelling, or 900 square feet, whichever is smaller. So in other words, the maximum size for a protected use ADU is 900 square feet. And the law permits only 1 protected use ADU per lot. So the proposed amendment is intended to accomplish 2 things. The primary purpose for this amendment is to make our zoning bylaw consistent with state law. Current inconsistencies have created a lot of confusion and taken up a lot of time by residents, prospective applicants, and town staff. Second, it would permit the Zoning Board of Appeals to grant special permits for local ADUs. And by local ADUs, we mean accessory dwelling units that do not qualify as a protected use ADU. So it would allow the zoning board to grant special permits for up to 1,250 square foot accessory dwelling units, whereas right now, the limit is 900 square feet. So why this proposed change? It's partly based on a couple of the following reasons. So first, it was in reaction to specific applications that we received here in Westford for accessory dwelling units. And so we noted that there, particularly for some existing detached structures, such as carriage houses, barns, or garages, the 900 square foot limit could be somewhat restrictive. Second, we did receive technical assistance from NIMCOG, and they're our regional planning agency who helped with this process, who noted at the beginning of this process that 2 of our surrounding communities at least allowed accessory dwelling units for up to 1,200 square feet. Third, we conducted a focus group and online surveys for persons aged 55 and older in 2023 to help figure out what some of their desired and/or future housing needs would be. The focus group indicated a strong preference for dwelling units between 1,000 square feet and 1,400 square feet. Of the online survey, of which we had 197 respondents, half supported accessory dwelling units or other units between 1,000 and 1,400 square feet. 2/3 supported ADUs of at least 1,000 square feet or larger. And only 10% of those who surveyed indicate that they would prefer a dwelling unit of some kind with 800 square feet or less. So in short, we tried to listen to some of the comments and feedbacks we heard throughout recent planning processes, and that's one of the reasons that we suggest adjusting this to 1,250 square feet. And for some of you who diligently followed the planning board public hearing process, some of you are out there, I want to acknowledge, you may see there's a couple of changes from the last time this was before the planning board. And so upon later town council review, it was discovered that there were some oversights in the proposed table, Appendix B, Table of Accessory Uses. It did not correctly list all of the zoning districts that the protected use ADUs are already allowed as of right, according to state law. So that appendix was updated. The other thing I want to talk about is that at the beginning of this year, many municipalities in Massachusetts amended their zoning bylaws to address protected use accessory dwelling units. And so the Attorney General's office has issued a number of decisions recently for those. And we've noticed some patterns of either partial approvals or noting some defects. And so we did work with our town council to make some non-substantive changes so that if town meeting should approve this amendment, we won't have those same issues when it's being reviewed by the Attorney General's office. So one example of what I'm calling a non-substantive change, in the law and the regulations, if a protected use accessory dwelling unit is located within a half mile of a transit station, we cannot require any parking for that. And while there are not presently any such transit stations, which by transit station we mean a commuter rail station, a ferry terminal, a bus station, we don't have any of those within, a half mile of Westford. But it doesn't mean that there couldn't be 30 years down the road. And so if we did not add that phrase to account for that, we would be flagged by the Attorney General's office, and we would need to maybe make changes at a future town meeting, which would cost the town more money. The planning board conducted their required public hearing beginning on August 18th, continued it a number of times, and concluded the public hearing on October 6th, and they voted 5-0 to recommend this article to town meeting. The planning board's written report and recommendation is included in the Article 4 handout, beginning on page 5. Both the Select Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals voted 5-0 to recommend this article to town meeting. And next, Planning Board Chair, Attorney Michael Bonifant, will provide an oral report on behalf of the board. Thank you.
Zoning bylaw requires that we get a recommendation from the planning board, and that's what the chair is here to tell us.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you, Mr. Morissette. Again, as Mr. Morissette said, we did meet 4 times, held public hearing, and voted 5-0 to recommend this amendment to town meeting.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments about this Zoning bylaw, yes. At the center microphone.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ann Nogler, 8 Nonset Lane. I would like to propose an amendment to change the square footage on the local ADU from 1,250 square feet to 900 square feet. I believe that would require 2 places in the document to be changed, and I have a copy if you'd like it.
Yes. I'll take the copy. And then can you please just state the basis for your amendment? First, is there a second to that amendment? Yeah. And now if you could tell us what the basis of your amendment is, briefly.
I reached out to all 6 neighboring towns of Westford. 4 I heard back from. I did not hear back from Carlisle and Littleton as to what they were doing. Acton is allowing 1 ADU lot, 1 ADU per lot, and they're strictly adhering to the state mandate of the 900 square feet. Chelmsford is the same way. Tingsboro is one of the towns that hasn't voted on it yet, and they currently have a bylaw that allows 1,200 square feet, but they said most likely that would be going away at the next town meeting to just adopt state regulations. And Groton said they're strictly adhering to the state law. No town is allowing over 900 square feet. Once you get between 900 square feet to 1,250 square feet, there's a high potential of 3 bedrooms in the unit. In analyzing the Westford property records for residential dwellings, I found 759 houses that were between 9,000 to 1,250 square feet. Of these, 73%, almost 3/4, are 3 or more bedrooms. This would indicate a high potential of school-age residents. I also believe in keeping it simple, making 900 square feet across the board. The local option would not have the 50% of gross area limitation, but would require a special permit. Our current bylaw, before we vote on this article, allowed 900 square feet. Why change it? Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Are there any comments or questions about the proposed amendment? Yes, at the microphone to my left.
Hi, Lisa Nakash in Holsburg, Betty Lane again. I would really love to hear from our boards what their guidance might be on this. The reason why I ask is, we've got Article 6 coming up, and I don't mind saying openly that I feel like
the question is valid. We don't need to know the reason you're asking.
No, I want to explain.
Okay.
I would like to know why 1250 would be a bad thing, where we just saw Powers Road. We thought it was going to be a few units, and suddenly it was huge. So what's wrong with allowing our own homes that are actually owned by folks who live here that want to have their family or maybe a rental salt and pepper into our community? I think that's exactly the kind of community we want, where it works within our neighborhoods rather than these huge monstrosities that look like a Monopoly block. So I'd like to know, is there a detriment to this 1250? Because I'm thinking, I don't have a problem with it, but I'd like to know.
Jeff, do you want to answer that? I think the question is whether, or maybe we need the chair, because I think the question is whether or not the planning board feels there's a detriment to having the 1,250 square foot number. A downside.
Madam Moderator, if we may have a minute to discuss and vote on an opinion on that?
On the amendment? Board? Sure. Yep. So while they're doing that, at the center microphone.
Hi, Ryan Rawls, 62 Providence Road. First of all, let me say, I'm a lawyer by practice, and I had a little trouble following what's going on here. So I have a couple clarifying questions to understand how to vote on this potential amendment, which is, as I understand it, protected use is required by the state, and that's up to 900. And this discussion of 1250 is about a local ADU, which the town of Westford is endorsing, not state required, that jumps up to 1250. And I just want some clarity as to whether that requires a permit or whether that's going to be automatic as right. Is that what the proposed difference is?
Yeah. Okay, let's get Jeff Marsa to answer that.
Thank you for that question. So for the protected use ADUs, it really would be more of a building permit process. There wouldn't be a public hearing. For the local accessory dwelling unit, that would be a public hearing process requiring a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And that's the permit that they don't have to grant and they can't impose conditions of approval. So that's the one that requires a public hearing special permit process.
And is what you're asking to do in this article is to change that to be something that doesn't require a special hearing or permit?
No, so if I may, Madam Moderator.
Yes, yes.
So under state law, as of February 2nd, people can already come in and apply for the protected use ADU. It doesn't matter what our bylaw says. We are talking about making a change from 900 square feet to 1,250 square feet for the ADUs that do need permission from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
I see. So my understanding is you're asking for permission to be able to approve those at all in a special process with the hearing and people being able to attend and give feedback if it goes between 900 and 1,250 as compared to not having any opportunity at all.
Correct, for those that do not qualify as a protected use, because it is possible to have a protected use that can't be as large as 900 square feet, depending on the size of the principal dwelling. It could be less.
And you may not be able to answer this, but is the amendment to just make that, is the amendment really just making that non-existent then? That we're not voting to have the discretionary process between 900 and 1,250 based on the amendment being proposed of lowering it to 900?
Nope. So the proposal tonight, it would continue to have the existing process requiring a special permit for ADUs. It's just, it would be for those ADUs that do not qualify as a protected use ADU.
Okay, sorry.
Yep. Nope, thank you.
Sorry, is somebody saying something without being at the microphone?
The last question was about the amendment that is currently on the floor. That's not how he answered.
I'm sorry, sir. If you want to speak, you'll have to wait in line and come to the microphone. Let's get the answer to Alyssa's question from the Planning Board.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Planning Board met and voted 4-0 not to recommend the amendment. I can cite a couple reasons if you like. We felt when we did hold the public hearing and we did speak with ZBA, ZBA is the entity that regularly deals with ADUs, and they were in support of the increase of the 1,250. My board also felt that it would give more opportunity to more families if we allowed the bigger ADUs.
Thank you. At the microphone to my left.
Noelle Donovan, 11 Moore Road. I am one of your select board members, but I'm here speaking for myself. I fully support this. I think Westford has a lot of seniors living in very big homes who would like to downsize and also maybe have children that would like to move to town, and this, currently that's my situation. I think this would allow a lot of families to move back together and give younger families a opportunity to move to
Noelle,
town.
I just want to clarify, are you speaking to the amendment?
No.
Okay, then step back. Emily, are you speaking to the amendment?
Yes, I think I am. Emily Teller, 9 Texas Road. I do not feel like this amendment should pass because I think, A, we should keep the basic text of our change in line with that of the state change. And can I speak to size?
You can speak to the amendment, which is to change the size from 1,250 to 950.
I would like to speak to that. My husband and I are 76, and we have been looking at potential places to move, and if we do it together, 900 is kind of a squeeze. So the home we moved into was 1,200 square feet, and we had a 4-month-old and a 4-year-old when we moved into that, and they were in 1 bedroom, and we could live with 1,200, but 900 is a little bit of a squeeze, and I agree in concept with Noelle's thinking about having different generations live on the same property, and I think that would be a good idea, and so that additional 350 square feet is a good idea.
Thank you, Emily. At the microphone to my left, but not Noelle.
Greg Flom, 3 Quarry Hill Road. Just explain what I was trying to say from my
Yes, sir, please.
The question at the microphone was, what is the effect of the amendment that is on the floor? But I think that Jeff's response was regarding
the motion, not the amendment.
Ah, okay.
Apologize for the oversight. So if this amendment passes, it would keep everything the same, except it would limit the maximum size of the local accessory dwelling units to 900 square feet.
Does that clarify? Okay. At the center microphone. Is to the amendment, please.
Yes, this is Jim Garcia, 5 Railtree Terrace. As far as I can tell, a 1,200 square foot house is basically another house. So this is not an accessory dwelling unit. This is just another house, which is one of the earlier people said that there's, 1/4 of the houses in town are that size. So it's really not an accessory. It's another single family house. And 2, if you have once you go to the special permitting, you can get a variance and go from 1,200 to 1,400 if you want. Once you go to a special permit, you can get a variance. Like every time somebody comes in to build something, they ask for a variance and get something or request something. So is that 1,250 hard, or can somebody request 1,300? And if somebody is at 900, could they get to 1,000 if they go to a special variance?
Let's have that addressed.
Thank you. So it is possible for someone to petition the Zoning Board of Appeals to seek additional dimensional zoning relief to allow greater square footage than is required by working with the bylaw through the special permit process. Ideally, though, what is best is to figure out what the community wants and to have your bylaw drafted so as to allow, on a case-by-case basis, what you would like to see. Anyone is always free to seek zoning dimension relief. It's usually not considered the best idea. It is very different criteria. It's usually very difficult to satisfy. So I would just suggest think what the community may want and try to find a number that works for the community, because variance relief is not the ideal solution when trying to do permitting such as this, but it is an option.
Thank you.
Okay, at the microphone to my right.
Bischoff, 7 Depot Street. As I'm designing an ADU for my family right now, my parents are 76 years old, and the 900 square feet is very limiting to make it ADA accessible. They need a wheelchair permanently or just for an injury. So I think that the 1,250 gives us a little bit more space for turning radiuses and accessibility.
Thank you. At the center mic.
Teresa Morrison, 1 Howard Road. Just a quick question. I'm wondering what this all does to our compliance with septic tanks. You've got 2 dwellings on pretty good size on 1 parcel of land, and how does that translate with septic? Thank you.
Do you want to answer that, Jeff, or do you want to have somebody from the Board of Health answer?
So we can only say a little bit about this, and it may fall to the health department. But any time that you are proposing any kind of construction or addition, those applications are reviewed by the health department on behalf of the Board of Health. I will say that for many existing lots, it is not always an easy thing to do to add even a single bedroom. Some of you may have been through that process. And any time that there is an increase of the septic system design flow, that usually requires full compliance with Title V requirements. But I would defer to the health department if they want to add to that. Thanks, Ray.
I think that was a yes. Okay, I don't see any further questions, so we're going to vote on the amendment. So the amendment is to change the size, you can see it up on the screen, to change the size. Well, Steve, we can't see it on the screen. Right there. To change the size, the allowable size from 1,250 square feet to 900 square feet. We're just voting on the amendment now, not the underlying motion. Does everybody understand what we're voting on? Okay. The amendment. One moment, please. The vote on the amendment is a simple majority. So when I say voting is open, which it is Yeah. Now, you may vote. If you want to vote for the amendment changing the square footage for the allowable ADUs from 1250 to 900, you'll vote yes. If you want to keep it at 1250, you'll vote no. In 5 seconds, I'll close the vote. Okay, voting is closed. The amendment fails. No 224, yes 109. So now we're moving to the underlying motion. Does anybody have any further questions about the motion? Okay, Heather?
Heather Fitzpatrick, 13 Shannon Circle. I'm just looking for clarification. If you have an ADU and it's a separate, can you split the parcels and become 2 properties? And also, if it's within, can it be condominiumized and become 2 properties?
Jeff?
So I heard the first part of that. If you have a principal dwelling and say a detached accessory dwelling unit, could you potentially divide that lot so as to have 2 distinct lots, each having a dwelling unit? Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. So it is theoretically possible, but each lot would in theory have to meet all of the dimensional zoning requirements to have a separate lot in the first place. They would also have to meet any of the setback requirements from any of those new lot lines, and they would also have to meet all the septic requirements through Health Department in Title V. So I'm not saying it's easy. It is theoretically possible. If you begin with an oversized lot, dramatically oversized lot, it is possible.
Okay, so the second one is, if it's within the building, can they condominiumize the second unit?
So our zoning bylaw, and council can correct me, but we cannot regulate the form of the ownership of those units. It is certainly possible that it could be condominiumized or have some other arrangement for how the ownership works out there, but I'll defer to council.
Thank you. Yes, Justin Parada, Land Use Council. What Jeff said is correct, as it usually is. Zoning can't regulate ownership, so in theory, someone could apply for condominium approval to condominiumize a accessory dwelling unit.
Thank you. At the center microphone.
James Shuley, 19 Flushing Pond Road. A follow-up on the septic question. Would an ADU need to share a single septic, or are 2 contemplated?
We'll have the Board of Health answer that question. Ray Dick.
Hi, Ray Dick, Health Department, Health Director. Thank you for the question. So for an ADU, you can have either one. You can actually propose a septic system that can service both units, or in this case, the house and the ADU, or you can propose to have separate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Seeing no further questions, let's move to the vote on this motion. If you want to approve the zoning bylaw change, you'll vote yes. If you want to disagree and not approve it, you'll vote no. This requires a 2/3 majority because it is a change to our zoning bylaw. Is everybody clear on what we're voting for? All right. Voting is now open. 5 seconds and I'll close the vote. Voting's closed. The motion passes 235 yes to 78 no. Okay, under Article 5, I have a motion that the town vote to amend Appendix A to our zoning bylaw, the table of uses, to allow applicants to seek special permit relief for several uses where current requirements may otherwise prohibit these uses within certain zoning districts, as shown in the yellow handout in the back, titled 2025 Special Town Meeting Article 5 Handout, Proposed Modifications to Appendix A, Table of Principal Use Regulations. Is there a second to this article? All right, Joe Jinowitz,
Thank you, Madam
Town
Moderator.
Planner.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Good evening. The amendments under Article 5 would allow potential applicants to seek special permit relief for some existing uses identified in the bylaw that the Land Use Management Department has received inquiries about over the last several years, where current zoning requirements otherwise prohibit these uses within certain zoning districts in town. Essentially, this article is looking to offer the opportunity to add some maybes where the bylaw right now says no for uses identified in the Warren article. By requiring the grant of a special permit, as opposed to allowing the uses as of right, each application will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis, where the special permit granting authority, whether that's the Planning Board or the Zoning Board of Appeals, can have discretion to approve or deny an application. By adopting these changes, it provides additional options for property owners to consider for redevelopment of their property, and allows more opportunities for economic development in a couple of ways. It reduces missed opportunities for businesses to come to town that previously passed on Westford, just by virtue of seeing a no in the current table of uses. And it enables more small to mid-sized businesses with the ability to apply to operate their business in town, so long as the special permit granting authority can determine the criteria for granting a special permit can be satisfied, thereby potentially preserving and improving the commercial tax base as properties turn over. The Planning Board, Economic Development Committee, Select Board, and Zoning Board of Appeals have all recommended this article at the town meeting, and we're hoping that you'll support Article 5 as well. With that, I'll turn it over to Michael Bonifant, Chair of the Planning Board, to summarize the report and recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jenowitz. Again, Planning Board did meet on this. We held 3 public hearings and voted 5-0 to support this amendment. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments about this fascinating zoning article? All right, seeing none, we'll move right to the vote. This is a 2/3 majority again because it's a zoning change. If you want to vote in favor of this change, vote yes. If you want to vote against it, vote no. Voting is now open. Five seconds and we'll close the vote. Voting's closed. The motion passes 210 yes, 55 no. We're now at Article 6. I have a motion that the town vote to amend the zoning map relative to the MBTA Communities Multifamily Overlay District with respect to certain parcels contained within the office park known as Technology Park East, Specifically, the amendment would remove 2 Technology Park Drive containing about 8.22 acres and 6 Technology Park Drive containing about 7.12 acres, or 15.34 acres in total, and would add 5 Technology Park Drive containing about 13.68 acres. The amendment would result in a net decrease to the overlay district by approximately 1.66 acres, as shown in the mint green handout in the back, titled 2025 Special Town Meeting Article 6 Handout, Proposed Changes to MBTA Communities Multifamily Overlay District. This amendment is requested by the Gutierrez Company, the owner of the property, and sponsored by the Planning Board. Is there a second to the motion under Article 6? Do we need some explanation? Do you have a question, Megan? Yes. No, you want, okay, Jeff, you're going to give a very brief explanation.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and you covered most of my materials, so thank you. I just want to highlight, this is really only requesting a change to the zoning map, so that's specifically the overlay district for the MBTA Communities Multifamily Housing Overlay District, or MICMOD. The Gutierrez Company did come in and have conversations with the Planning Board about why they were seeking this proposal, and in their mind, they need something like this to maintain the long-term vibrancy of the park. They have been a long-time owner of that property, doing business in town a long while, and when the Planning Board heard their case, they did agree to sponsor this amendment on their behalf. And even though that was the case, I will say the Gutierrez Company did offer and agree to pick up all the hard costs associated with this zoning proposal. And we did receive preliminary information from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, EOHLC, that if this were to pass, they did not see any way that this could jeopardize our existing compliance with the MBTA Communities Law. I would like to also highlight that they are proposing a mixed-use development, so it is not just housing. They are proposing an 80-unit multifamily housing project in 2 buildings. It would be home ownership, condominium form of ownership. They are also including a commercial amenity component. It would be either a brew pub or a restaurant. This would all be located at 5 Technology Park Drive. It is currently all proposed to be 2-bedroom units, and they are intending to target persons age 55 and older. It will not, at this point, be restricted, though, to persons age 55 and older. So it is certainly possible that you could have children in this development, you could have a mix, but it is intended to be geared towards persons 55 and older. So the Planning Board did hold their required public hearing beginning on August 18th. They concluded their hearing on September 29th, and they voted 5-0 to recommend this article to town meeting. The written report and recommendation is included in the Article 6 handout beginning on page 3, and the Economic Development Committee voted 9-0 to support this article. And both the Select Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals voted 5-0 to recommend this article to town meeting. And once again, Planning Board Chair Attorney Michael Bonifant will provide an oral report on behalf of the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Morissette. Planning Board did meet, as Mr. Morissette said, 4 times for public hearing. On the 5th meeting, we did vote 5-0 to support this amendment, and we'll add further that the Planning Board was encouraged and excited by the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move to the floor for questions. Megan?
Megan O'Connell, 44 South Chelmsford Road. Madam Moderator, I move to amend Article 6 by removing all language after and including the phrase "and would add" in the 2nd sentence.
Just a moment. By removing all language after, could you say that again, please?
By removing all language after including the phrase "and would add" in the 2nd sentence. The result would be that this motion would then remove 2 parcels without adding anything back.
Okay, and is there a second to that motion to amend? All right. You want to explain the rationale?
Absolutely. Yes, the rationale is that when the town created this district year and a half, 2 years ago, whatever it was, we created a district that was about 5 times larger than was required by the state. And part of the reason that we heard from the town was that we wanted to cast a wide net to see what developments we could entice to come into town. Well, we're starting to see what that is. We have 530 units that are well into the planning stages on Powers Road. We have another 300 that's likely to come from the Regency. And I think at this point, as the town had said at the time, we can scale it back once we understand what developments we can entice. So I think, and many people I think similarly, that it would make sense at this point to scale back the district just a smidge while we wait until these current developments come into fruition and see how the town can adjust to it before we start to open up to more.
Thank you. Can I also ask you to get that down and bring it up to the front, please? You can hand it right to Laurie here. At the microphone to my right.
Ross Cass.
Oh, now wait a minute. I'm sorry. We have to address the amendment. So
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Ross Cass, 23 Monadnock. My point was very similar to what he just said. With all the additions like the Marriott and Powers Road, when we discussed the district, we discussed that it would still be subject, these right of uses would still be subject to all the building codes and look and feel of Westford underlying rules and regulations. So when we have large developments like Hildreth or Pilgrim, you can't see them from the roads. They have massive setbacks. With all these things that you're proposing, are they going to keep the look and feel, or are they going to put 5-story apartment buildings on those properties?
Is that a question?
Yes. I would like that this amendment keep the original promise to keep the look and feel of Westford unchanged.
Okay, so I'm going to say that that question is really not relevant to the amendment. That question, it goes more to the underlying motion. Okay, so let's hold off on that question until we get back to the amendment. To my left.
Erica Cole, Francis Hill Road. I'm opposed to the amendment. I am going to remind town meeting the reason that we adopted one of the reasons that people thought of when approving the broader MBTA zone was that we need housing. We need our youth to be able to live in our town. We need our parents to be able to live in our town. We need multifamily housing, and I'm opposed to things that will reduce the size of the zone that would allow that. Thank you.
Thank you. At the center microphone.
Hi, Ryan Rawls, 62 Providence Road. I want to walk through what this developer is doing for a second in imposing this amendment. You have the original setup of this area where they would have the right to propose this already. They come before us proposing a better solution using less acres that's supposed to benefit the community, a specific plan with less units than they could have just moved to do. And if the response to that we as a town do, is we tell the developer, nah, we're just going to remove it out of the area entirely, what you're saying makes no sense to me given the concern about the tax base and given that we have to have a certain number of areas. We're being given a specific proposal that we are in control of that has less units, less acreage on the land that's already done. And your proposal is to say no to the developer. You're like, well, there'll be other projects. Are people going to want to do the type of development that requires some work by us to make it the best possible plan? Or are they just going to push through all of the things that you're opposed to without working for us and working with us? The idea here of kiboshing this the way that you're suggesting is basically to tell developers not to talk to our town about developing the best solutions for future properties. It's suggesting that we thumb our nose at the developer who, by the way, has been an anchor in the community for this particular development for years and say, we're not going to work with you. So what's going to happen as a result of that? You may remove this program, but then every other single developer who looks at what happened here is going to just push through without any feedback from us or consultation or working with the town in good faith to develop a better project. I'm strongly opposed to this amendment. I think that we can talk about removing other aspects in a future town meeting once we greenlight a development that's good for where we are in this particular area.
Thank you. At the microphone to my right.
Gloria Miller, 14 Hutchins Way. I agree with the previous speaker that and I oppose this amendment because it is patently unfair to the developer. The developer came forward in good faith to present a swap of parcels. We cannot take away the developer's rights. And if this amendment were to pass, I do have a question for town council. Have we potentially, as town meeting, opened up the town to legal liability because we have taken away rights from a developer who came forward with this motion in good faith?
Justin, can we get town council to answer that?
So the answer to that question is no. There's no vested right for, they would be compliant with whatever was there prior to the time this was noticed, they'd be compliant with, but there's no vested right to a particular zoning classification. There is an issue which we've been discussing a little bit, which is would this take Westford out of compliance with the MBTA requirement? And that's a very complex calculation. That's the way you get that answer is you submit it to the state and they tell you if you're in compliance or not. As Jeff mentioned, they did that for this amendment as was proposed, but I don't think we're sure whether that would be the case if this were taken out. We may have some idea, but I don't think that's actually been analyzed. But you could correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, I think that's enough of an answer. Microphone to my left.
Dan Levine, 6 Koala Bear Lane. The amendment seems to me like it's basically just a no vote on the motion, which you can just vote no on the motion. So I'd like to move to just vote on the amendment.
Okay, I'm sorry, but you can't make a motion, you can't make a comment and then move the question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, but you can stand there and speak again if you get a chance. Emily at the center microphone.
Emily Teller, 9 Texas Road. I am definitely against the amendment because I think this project is kind of cool because it's walking distance to a lot of amenities in town, and I think it's a great location.
At the microphone to my right.
Heather Fitzpatrick, 13 Shannon Circle. I would support this amendment. I feel like when we reviewed the MBTA communities that we didn't spend much time on it. That meeting was overshadowed by the override. I think we don't know what we're getting into. We're going to need more police, more fire. I think we just need to step back a little bit, and if we take 15 acres out, I don't think that's going to pull us out of compliance. We agreed, or we've heard that the state needed 900. We approved almost 5,000.
Thank you. At the microphone to my left.
Kathy Lynch on One Rush Road. We never had to have this MBTA overlay to begin with because we're MBTA adjacent. So I'm for this amendment because I think we need to scale back and try things at a lesser level.
And at the center microphone.
Andrea Parent, Suite 21 Kersey Circle. I move the question.
Is there a second to? All right. So this is just to terminate debate, and it requires a 2/3 majority. I am going to try to do this with a voice vote. All in favor of terminating debate by moving the question, say aye. All opposed, say nay. I would say that's 2/3. So we have now moved the question, and we're going forward with the vote on the underlying Article 6. If you are in... I'm sorry. We're going forward with the amendment to Article 6. My apologies. It's getting late. If you are in favor of amending the article as proposed to basically eliminate the 2 parcels, then you'll vote yes. If you are opposed to that and want to go forward with the article as it's proposed, you'll vote no. Is everybody clear on what we're voting? Good, because I'm getting confused. This is a simple majority to amend. So all in favor of the amendment, vote yes. If you're opposed, vote no. Voting is now open. Five seconds. Voting is now closed. The motion to amend fails. The vote is 198 no, 61 yes. So we're now on the underlying motion. Any comments or questions about that, sir?
Yes, WestfordCAT 23 Monadnock. I'd like to repeat my question.
Yes.
With all of these multi-use developments that are going on presently, based on the promises that were made at the prior town meetings, will the look and feel of Westford change under these development proposals? Will they keep the building to keep the same landscape and general feel that Westford already has? Or are we going to look like 110 in Chelmsford, with all the Avalon-looking buildings?
Thank you. Jeff, do you want to answer that?
Thank you. So when the town drafted the MBTA Communities Bylaw, it did impose significant setback requirements, landscaping requirements, and a whole host of other considerations. So any proposal would have to go to the planning board and seek those approvals and meet those guidelines and standards. I will say for this specific proposal, the lot that they are looking to develop is not adjacent to Littleton Road. It is set back behind a further lot. It is already a developed lot, and it would result in a reduction of impervious area at this point in time. So.
And does the planning board, in their opinion, like the, would they approve a project that would look like the Avalon type projects?
We'll get the chair of the planning board to answer that. So Jeff isn't risking his opinion in front of his bosses.
So in my opinion, it's too hypothetical to say we would approve or not approve. We do have guidelines and we do have standards to adhere to, which is in the bylaw.
Okay, microphone to my left.
Erica Cole, Francis Hill Road. As I mentioned earlier, I am a fan of us having a large overlay district or any overlay district. I think we very much need to have this housing in town. I like what this developer has done in regards to having multifamily housing, green space, and multi-use. I don't like the proposal to remove the other plots, and I'm inclined to vote against it just because of that, but I'd like to hear what the intention was for removing those plots. Does that make sense?
Do you understand the question, Jeff? Erica, let me try and correct me if I'm wrong. Are you asking why the two plots are being exchanged as opposed to?
Yes. Why didn't we just expand it to allow for this development rather than taking something away? Why didn't we just add that in?
Okay. All right, Jeff will answer that.
Thank you. I can answer that question. The Gutierrez Company actually had meaningful conversations with us. They were sensitive to the concerns of the community. They heard that there was angst about the size of our overlay district. And while they certainly could have pursued an option that only required a simple majority vote, they decided to pursue, they volunteered to pursue the option that removed two parcels so that it would result in a small net decrease to the district area, even though it would require a higher throat threshold, because they thought that was more in keeping with what the community was looking for. And if I've misspoken, there is a representative here who can correct my misunderstanding.
I think you've answered the question. At the center microphone.
Doug Burns, 4 Black Bear Lane. I have a question. The Supreme Court of the state said that while the mass MBTA zoning overlay itself was constitutional, they threw out the language of the law. They said it was not. So the state has not provided any clear legal direction on this zoning overlay. And that's something everyone can Google right now and see that that is the case. It has been rejected by the Supreme Court. So I'm wondering why we are spending so much time working on building plans and talking about 5-story buildings, which will require more fire trucks and all this, when we don't know what the state's going to require.
We'll get legal counsel to answer that. Thank you for the question. Greg Corbo, Town Council.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Moderator. My name is Greg Corbo, Town Council for the Town of Westford. Respectfully, it is not correct that the law has been stricken by the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court. There have been 2 court cases involving challenges to the MBTA Communities Act. The first one involved the town of Milton, and that one did go directly to the Supreme Judicial Court. And in that case, the court held that Section 3A of Chapter 40A, or the statute itself, was constitutional and enforceable by the Attorney General's office by more than just taking away grant funds. The second part of that was the court found that at the time, the guidelines that were in effect were not properly enacted by EOHLC, and the court struck those guidelines. Since that happened, the HLC went forward and made the changes that the Supreme Judicial Court was requiring, changed those guidelines to regulations, and those regulations very clearly state what Westford is required to have in terms of acreage, number of units, and density. A second lawsuit earlier this year challenged the regulations on grounds that the act constitutes an unfunded mandate and that the regulations themselves, to the extent that they required a certain number of acres or units, was arbitrary and capricious. A number of towns brought that challenge, and the Massachusetts Superior Court dismissed all of them and found once again that the act and the regulations are valid and proper enactments by the legislature and HLC, and they are in fact binding on the town of Westford and every other MBTA community. And I have worked in a number of towns that did not meet compliance deadlines and had grants, state grant funds, including for education, taken away from them. So this is a very real and binding requirement. You've already complied. The only issue here tonight is whether you're going to make a tweak that basically just shifts the land around. And so, you know, the amendment that's before you will allow you to maintain compliance. If there is a substantial decrease in the number of acreage or permissible units, there would be a high risk that you would be found to be in violation.
Thank you. The microphone to my right.
Heather Fitzpatrick, 13 Shannon Circle. We've learned from the Powers Road that we're going to take a certain number of units times the acreage and come up with the total amount that can be built, and they can squeeze that into the buildable land. Understanding that this is reducing by 1.66 acres, we would have less buildable units, but I'm curious how the power lines play into this. In theory, are we going to give them more land to build on because of the power lines? So is it really less acreage but more buildable acreage?
Can you answer that, Jeff?
I can do my best, Madam Moderator. So what I will say is if you're familiar with that property, the power lines and that easement are quite significant burden to that property. So, and if you look at any of the aerial imagery, you'll see that there are no essentially permanent structures there under that easement. So even though that land may count as acreage inside of the lot in terms of unit density, what they are proposing is below what the calculated theoretical unit capacity could be for that lot. They're also constrained. They operate off of an existing wastewater treatment facility. And while there will be certain limitations associated with that, I don't know if they can work within the existing design flow or not. I do know it would be a significant process to try to increase the design flow to that existing wastewater treatment facility. I think they may have an advantage relative to stormwater, which is another concern when looking at projects like this, because they are proposing a reduction in the impervious area, so that might not be an issue. But between the setbacks and the easements, it does limit the developable area, but they are proposing currently to limit the developable area to what is already presently developed. So,
can I just make sure I understand that then? So I understand that the developer is not going to build out to the max capacity that they could, but let's just say that they were going to, and someone else owns it down the road. They are limited by the power lines, and this does not add or help solve that problem, or it does help solve that problem.
This proposed relocation to that district area, the power lines are an issue for every lot affected by that. So, and this lot is significantly affected by the power line easement.
The two or the new one?
The new one contains, I don't know if we can put that map up, asking our IT department.
Are you asking what the acreage of the new one is?
No, I just wanted to graphically, and it might even be on our GIS, the power easement is quite significant on that property, and you'll see that those two red lines in parallel, that represents the power line easement, and so there's no permanent structures located beneath that. However, it can be used for parking.
So I think she's asking, does this bylaw change that? No existing structures can exist within there. Does the bylaw in any way change that? The amendment to this bylaw that we're making, does it change that?
So those existing easement rights stay. It is not affected by this zoning proposal at all.
Okay.
To my left.
Elisa Nakashin, Holzberg, Betty Lane. Madam Moderator, I want to acknowledge, as was said previously, that Gutierrez is one of the nicer developers in town, more reputable than some, I'd say. At the same time, I can't say that a lot of the community isn't feeling shell-shocked by what's taking place at Powers Road. I don't live near there. I live on the other side of town, but I still care about what's going on down there. And folks didn't sign up for 5 stories and having to buy, more fire engine capacity.
Okay, I just want to direct you back to the motion itself.
I'm right on the question.
Alyssa, we are not here to debate what already passed. We're talking about this motion only, so please limit your comments to that.
I am. I want to explain where my question comes from.
You just asked the question. You don't have to explain where it comes from.
Because we've already experienced what's happened. I think folks want to know if this is passed. In exchange for this passing here, can we extract from Gutierrez agreement that there isn't going to be variance after variance, special permit after special permit, and turn this into what happened? I don't mean exactly into what happened at Powers Road, but how can residents feel that it's not going to happen again and again? I think that's what folks are asking, and I think the select board maybe could help mitigate the next project and the next project. That's the message that I'm hearing around me.
All right.
We
have a representative from the owner here. He is not a town resident. We need a vote, 2/3 vote, to allow him to speak. Are you making a motion to that effect? Is there a second? All right. All in favor of allowing Mr. Israel Lopez, who is a representative of the Gutierrez Company, address the meeting to answer the questions Alyssa just raised and others that have come forward, please say aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, that's definitely 2/3. Thank you, sir. Approach the microphone. Please introduce yourself and see what you can do to answer the questions that have come up.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Israel Lopez with the Gutierrez Company. I'm the Managing Director of Development. Thank you all for coming tonight, and I appreciate the questions. The first thing I would say is that, and it's been mentioned before, is we've been in Westford for almost 4 decades, developing, owning, and managing over 1 million square feet of R&D and office space. And when we first engaged in the process of looking to include some land within the overlay district, and even with the proposed amendment tonight, our first and primary concern is how do we maintain the technology park as a vibrant, attractive corporate campus for tenants all throughout this area. The history of this park has had great corporate tenants, from NVIDIA to Sonos and Raytheon and lots of other great companies that bring a lot of engineering jobs to Westford. And that is our primary focus. And one of the things that I think is important to note is that there's also a downside to what we're asking not passing, and that is the potential for the park to sort of erode and lose some of its vibrancy over time. So as much as this proposal generates housing and a form of ownership that we've met with the town and we've heard, I've personally done lots of interaction with local residents. I've been to the senior center. I've tried to hear the concerns. And so what we wanted to do is put forth a proposal that didn't overreach. Developers are oftentimes, accused of asking for, 10 times what they actually want. We didn't do that in this case. We met with members of the community, and we wanted to put forth a proposal that we thought was measured and really and that's why, to the question about why did we remove 2 parcels instead of just simply adding 1, we didn't want the perception that we were trying to build this enormous multifamily housing complex. So again, the purpose of the motion and the amendment is really to try and create a vibrant mixed-use development within Tech Park East so that we don't have tenants leave the park. And what we've heard repeatedly from our tenants is that adding a moderate amount of housing creates that mixed-use dynamic, keeps the park vibrant, keeps Westford a place where R&D companies want to continue to be.
Thank you, Israel.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to take these 3 people at the microphone, and then let's move to a vote. Otherwise, we'll be here next week. So to the microphone to my left.
Hi, Ryan Rawls, 62 Providence Road. Thank you, the representative from the developer, for speaking to us. This is exactly what I was saying in the amendment. We have a developer here who's worked with the town. He's trying to work with us in good faith. We need to take the opportunities where we have them. This is an office park with power lines running in front of it. This is not going to affect the character of the town. And I just want to point out that the surrounding communities are dealing with these issues the same way. The IBM plant just closed in Littleton, and they're developing a large-scale, multi-use development. It's not changing the character, but what it is giving them a better tax base, vibrancy, increased economic opportunity. For everyone's complaints about the Powers Road project, and I think many of them are valid, this is markedly different. This is an area that's already developed in a way close to the highway that is an office park. And we have an opportunity to make something better, I think, and we have an opportunity to improve it. So I strongly hope that you vote in support of this.
Thank you. The other 2 questioners have left, so we can, not left the room, just left the microphone. So we can move to a vote. So this is the underlying motion. If you're in favor of this zoning bylaw amendment, you'll vote yes. If you're opposed, you'll vote no. Voting is now open. Okay, 5 seconds and we'll close the vote. Voting is closed. The motion passes 227 yes to 27 no. Okay, under Article 7, our last zoning bylaw, I have a motion that the town vote to amend Section 9.4 of the zoning bylaw to create a 3-tiered site plan review permitting process to replace the current single-level permitting process, as shown in the handout titled Special Town Meeting, which is sky blue in color. Article 7 handout, proposed tiered site plan review process. Is there a second to that motion? Joe Jinowitz, Town Planner.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. For several years, the Land Use Management Department has worked with the Economic Development Committee to look for opportunities to streamline the permitting process, particularly for commercial and industrial development and redevelopment, balancing the ways individual proposals may proceed through permitting expeditiously while still receiving appropriate review to ensure compliance with state and local regulations. The amendments proposed under Article 7 will assist with this objective by creating 3 tiers of review for the town's site plan review process, as opposed to the single-level review process that exists today. By creating this 3-tiered system, the town would be well-positioned to promote economic development opportunities and have a competitive advantage over other communities that still require a public hearing process for projects of any size. Currently, projects of all sizes are required to proceed through a public hearing process, which typically takes multiple months and can cost thousands of dollars. This can be a deterrent to some applicants, particularly small businesses looking to establish themselves in town. The proposed system would allow small projects to proceed forward without the time and expense of a public hearing. For example, a change of use from one tenant to another, say a salon to a retail establishment in a commercial space like within Westford Valley Marketplace, under the proposed review system could move forward without the need for a full public hearing process, but would still be subject to other requirements such as stormwater or Title V requirements. These changes would not only reduce the time and expense to permit smaller, less complex projects, but would also provide greater efficiency and time savings for the applicants, the planning board, and for town staff. The Planning Board, Economic Development Committee, Select Board, and Zoning Board of Appeals have all recommended this article at town meeting. We're hoping you'll support Article 7 as well. I'll turn it over one more time to Mike Bonifant, Chair of the Planning Board, to summarize the report and recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jenowitz. Planning Board met 4 times, held 4 public hearings on this matter, and voted 5-0 to recommend this amendment. We'll note that this is a win for small businesses in town and should streamline the process.
Thank you, Mike. Seeing no questions, I think we can move right to the vote on this. 2/3 majority required. When voting is open, if you want to vote in favor, vote yes. If you want to vote against, vote no. Voting is now open. All right, you guys are nice and quick at the end of the night. Okay, 5 seconds to the close of the vote. Voting's closed. The motion passes, 197 yes to 23 no. Okay, we're at Article 8. Under Article 8, I have a motion that the town amend Section 38.5 of our general bylaw to allow the town manager to classify new positions and reclassify existing positions upon review and recommendation by the Personnel Advisory Committee without requiring ratification by town meeting. Is there a second to the motion under Article 8? All right. Are there any questions or comments about this article? At At the center microphone.
Erica Cole, Francis Hill Road. Two questions. One is the Personnel Advisory Committee will apparently no longer be advisory, right? It's an approval committee. Who makes it up? Is it townspeople? I assume that would be the case, but I just want to make sure it's not anyone.
It's a volunteer committee of the town.
Okay.
Am I right?
And the other question was the 10 business days. I mean, clearly there are periods where the select board does not meet for 10 days. So I'm not sure that it should be shortened. Can I
Do you want to answer that, Kristen, the reason for that?
I just wanted to make a clarification to the first question. This is review and recommendation from the Personnel Advisory Committee, not review and approval. So recommendation, they continue to have their advisory nature. We are looking to shorten the period under number 4. Policies shall become effective on the 10th business days following the day on which the notice to the proposed policy is filed with the Select Board, unless the Select Board shall within that period vote to reject such policy. The Select Board does have the ability to call for special meetings if we are outside of that date range.
Oh, okay. So I guess to be clear, there is no longer any ratification or approval required.
By town meeting?
By anyone, it sounds like. Is that what I'm hearing? I misinterpreted the committee's role. There's no approval required.
So there's 2 parts to this article. One is to amend the personnel section of the general bylaw to omit approval of town meeting for new positions or reclassification of positions, and to allow that to be reviewed and recommended by the Personnel Advisory Committee, and then ultimately determined by the town manager. The second part of the personnel general bylaw deals with the personnel policies. The Select Board does have to review and approve personnel policies.
Okay, but no one has to approve the reclassifying of positions. That would just be the town manager.
It would be town manager with a recommendation from the Personnel Advisory Committee.
Thank you.
George.
George Murray, 14 Haywood Road. This feels somewhat to me like a solution in search of a problem. I think we should be loath to make changes that dilute the power of town meeting. This is the most incredible invention that our forefathers came up with. And to say, well, in the interest of efficiency, we're just going to let one person do it. And I have no problems with the town manager. This is not personal in any regard. But we should keep the approval process. If you want to change position descriptions or change organizations, like when we formed the Highway Committee from several disparate but fantastically cooperative groups in town. It took a long time to do that. It took a number of years to get that change into place. And I think that's a good thing. We ought to hold on to that, take our time about these things so that people don't show up at town meetings and say, wait a minute, when did that happen? Nobody told me about that. And we're all, I'll speak for myself, delinquent in terms of staying current with all of the hearings and findings and everything else. So take a little more time, put a little more publicity behind it so that we end up supporting the town manager, not debating or disagreeing with the recommendations that he or she, not recommendations, that he or she had decisions that they have made. Thank you.
Thank you, George. The microphone to my left.
Hi, Ryan Rawls, 62 Providence Road. I have a question about how this affects finances and increases in salary for town employees using the process. So it seems to me hypothetically possible that someone can move to reclassify a position to increase the salary by, say, $30,000. And if they're friends with enough people on the volunteer board, they can get a recommendation for it, and then it can be approved. So I guess I'm trying to understand is what are the safeguards or backstops in place from people being reclassified with increased salaries or classify new positions to create increased salaries as compared to the current process, which is to create a new salaried position, or reclassify to a higher salary recovers the town meeting vote?
Kristen's going to answer that question.
Thank you. So town meeting ultimately approves the budget every year in March, and those salaries are within the budget. So town meeting would not be relinquishing their approval of the budget for these positions.
So to follow up on that, if you reclassify someone, and I understand we approved the town budget, which could include the salaries, but if you reclassify someone as a new position that contains a salary increase of $30,000, what we vote on later is not the reclassification with the higher salary. What we vote on is just adding $30,000 to the total budget. Is that the limited thing that we would vote on?
Could you repeat your question? I want to just make sure I understand.
Sure. So what we currently do is we vote both on reclassification of a position that could increase the salary and the total budget, which would include the salary. What can be done under this is you can reclassify someone for $30,000 salary increase, and then we just vote as an overarching budget in the town meeting to approve an additional $30,000 without approving the reclassification with the salary increase. Is that what's going to be the difference?
So town meeting ultimately approves all the line items within the budget separately. So it would not be that you would not see what those increases would potentially be. They would be proposed. They would not be existing.
Okay, so we have a chance to still veto any proposed funding for reclassification. This is just about the ability to reclassify?
This is just about the ability to create new positions or to classify positions to put us in a better position for recruitment and retention or organizational dynamics.
Okay.
Center microphone.
Emily Taylor, 9 Texas Road. Following up on Kristen's answer, does that mean that the reclassification and the creating new positions will have to be approved by town meeting before they go into existence, or can things happen during the year?
I'm going to let Kristen answer that.
So under the current general bylaw, the personnel section, if I were to propose a new position title or reclassify a position, I would have to come to town meeting to have that approved before it goes into place. The amendment on the floor this evening is to remove that town meeting approval and have the review and recommendation by the Personnel Committee to classify or reclassify a position.
Thank you for that. Responding to that, I tend to agree with George Murray. I think that this is pretty significant in our town, and it gives a lot of power to the role of town manager. I was on the Road and Bush Committee when the Personnel Committee was created, and I'm not sure that I think volunteers should be vetting or approving that significant a change. So I would vote against this.
Thank you. Dennis?
Dennis Galvin, 90 Concord Road. I'm speaking for myself here. I've been town meeting about 40 years. I remember some very strong, very, very contentious debates over classification, and I tend to agree with both George Murray and Emily Teller, so that's a first here, right? that this is a significant thing and it should not be changed. And I would move that we separate the question so that the motion for the pay bands, which is the first two paragraphs, stands alone, and then we can vote on the town manager's ability to make policies, which I don't have any objection to.
Okay, so you're making a motion
to separate the question.
Okay.
So that the first two paragraphs, which motion that the town vote to amend up to the Personal Advisory Committee, that stands alone as one motion.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right. Is there any comments or questions on the motion to sever this into two separate motions? Does everybody understand what's being said? Did somebody say no? Okay. So if we can put it up, this is the article there. Dennis, tell me where you want to separate, looking at the... No, I think it's further up.
All right, so it's Article 8, right?
Yeah.
And the motion that that I'm separating, it begins with that the town vote to amend section 38.5, and it ends in the second paragraph below at Personal Advisory Committee.
Right.
So that section would be
So
separated.
if you're looking, yes, so right here. Where we separate.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
Everybody see that?
Yeah.
So the motion is to separate from everything that's above the interlined words from everything that's below the interlined words. Now, does everybody understand?
Yeah, and the intent of the amendment is to preserve the town meeting's right to be able to approve the pay bands. I want that on the record.
Okay, we'll take it down. All right, let's move to a vote on that. So we're voting on the amendment. Okay, George, you have something to speak to the amendment?
I have no objections to the amendment, but I don't think that it deals with the objection that I originally raised, so I still oppose this, including the amendment.
Well, if we sever them, we'll be voting on the two parts of it separately.
Right, but it's the, I'm having trouble reading from here, it's the approval of positions and reclassifications that I think needs to come to town meeting for approval, not just voting on a budgeted amount. Okay?
So are you speaking against the amendment?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. Not the amendment, the motion to sever.
I'm sorry, I added confusion there. I have no position on whether we sever this or not because I don't think either way addresses what my problem is with the overall, and I know that that's the main motion that we'll get to later.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sir?
Greg Flom, Quarry Hill Road. On the severing, I think that the first paragraph would have to be duplicated in the severing.
Yep, I think you're right. So Dennis, we really need something in writing. While he's doing that, Lynn?
Lynn Cohen, Fletcher Road. I have a question. Who appoints the Personnel Committee?
The Select Board appoints the Personnel Advisory Committee.
Margaret, are you speaking to the motion to sever?
No.
Okay, can you step back then? So what we're doing now is just adding the introductory language that says that the town vote to amend section 38.5 such that it'll be repeated in the first part of the severed motion and then again in the second part of the severed motion. Okay, Dennis, are you? Yes, Emily.
Emily Teller, 9 Texas Road. I don't understand this separating because it seems to me, I mean, what does that mean? That the town manager position can create new roles and change classifications through the year or between town meetings and advertise those and recruit for those?
Yes, it means that town meeting will not be approving that anymore, which town meeting does now.
The amendment also says town meeting will not be...
No, it's not an amendment, it's a motion to sever.
Right.
He's separating the top part from the bottom part. But the part that you just spoke about from the second part, which relates to the development of personnel policies.
So separating them, if we vote yes on the first part, which ended before the line outs that deleted that phrase, means that the town manager can go ahead and change the classifications and salaries.
Yes.
On their own.
Correct.
And the bottom says, give me a summary, please.
let's have Greg, who seems to be more awake than I am, explain this.
Good evening. Thank you. Through you, Madam Moderator. So if everyone would just look at their motion book, okay, under Article 8, you'll see that the second paragraph has a set of changes by adding new language in bold and taking out certain existing language. And then at the bottom, by paragraph number 4, there's a different change to just change the number of days. These are two different types of actions that can be taken. The first set of changes relates to the classification or creation of new positions. The way that the bylaw currently reads is that if the town manager wants to reclassify or create a new position, that decision has to be voted on by town meeting. The suggested motion would be to take the town meeting requirement out. Completely separate from that is that the town manager also has the authority to create personnel policies. And those policies can be enacted by the town manager with the approval or the ability of the select board to veto. That's already in the bylaw. All that's being changed there is the amount of time that the select board has to veto. So these two parts to this one motion are really getting at two different things. The first thing is, do you want town meeting to be able to have a say in classifying positions or creating new positions? If you vote yes, you would be saying town meeting is out. If you vote no, you'd be saying town meeting stays in. The second part is simply regarding timing of policies. Do you want the select board to have 30 calendar days or 13 business days? And so we'll be taking two votes. The first vote would be on the first part, and the second vote would be on the second part.
Thank you. Dennis, did you bring something up here in writing?
No, our town attorney I couldn't have said that better myself. That's it.
I agree. But do you have your motion in writing? That's what I'm waiting for. Okay, are there any other comments or questions while we're waiting for Dennis to?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Michael Vestian, 7 Adams Lane. I would ask the town manager what efficiencies could be gained by, I don't know that I'm speaking to the amendment, I mean the proposed change.
I don't think you are.
Okay.
I think you'll have to hold that until we get to the underlying, because the underlying vote, to the underlying vote, it would be relevant what efficiencies are established by removing this from town meeting and giving it to the town manager. Am I understanding what you were going to say?
Yes, thank you.
If you can just hold on. You can stand there with Margaret, who's also waiting. Mrs. Hardy.
Ellen Hardy, 39 Main Street. I chaired the Personnel Commission before it was the Personnel Advisory Board, probably for 15 years. And I think that having that board and having town meeting a part of this is very important. So I would ask this town meeting to defeat the motion to divide. We actually, Robert's Rules of Order does not have a motion to sever. So it's a motion to divide, to defeat the motion to divide, and then to defeat the main motion for 2 reasons. One is that town meeting must be involved in this. And the other is the point that George Murray brought up at the very beginning of this meeting. This is not a decision that should be made at a special town meeting. This is something that the annual town meeting should discuss and ponder. So I would ask this body to vote no on both the motion to divide, and I would ask them to please vote no on the main motion, and then we can perhaps consider it at the annual town meeting in March.
Thank you. Yeah. 1 second. So I stand corrected. We're voting on a motion to divide. Thank you. And it's a simple majority vote. Does everybody understand what we're dividing? No? Did somebody say no? Okay. So if you look at the motions booklet, you can see that, as Greg explained, there are two different parts to this motion. The first part has to do with, Greg, I'm just going to ask you to do it again.
So can I just talk and tell you where my confusion is before you answer a question I didn't ask?
I'm sorry. Could you speak up?
Sean Knightley, 160 Depot Street. I'll just tell you where it's not clear so you don't answer a question I might not ask. You're talking about before and after, but you're, as far as the division, but you're not speaking to the words that are struck out.
Oh.
Where do those words go in this division?
Through you, Madam Moderator. So in the division is actually after the stricken words. Right. So the first part of this would add the bold and take away the strike through from that second paragraph in the motion. Okay? And then if you divide it, you would take a separate vote under number 4 to cross out on the 30th and add 10 business.
Okay, any other questions on the motion to divide? Great. If you're in favor of dividing this question, you're going to vote yes. If you're opposed, you're going to vote no. The voting is now open. Five seconds and we'll close the vote. Okay, voting is closed. The motion to divide fails. 155 no, 43 yes. All right, so now we're at the underlying motion. I know I have two people at that microphone who wanted to speak to that. Margaret?
Yes, Margaret Wheeler, 171 Depot Street. So I'm thinking about the scenario where a position is reclassified and the person filling that position, their salary is now below the minimum of that band. Does that basically force the town and town meeting to increase their salary?
Kristen?
I'll try to understand this, and if I'm not correct, please try to ask it in a different way. So what I may not have been clear about in my initial remarks is that the Personnel Advisory Committee has a grading scenario of when we are going for a new position based upon the requirements of that position, what band it would fall in, and then what those ranges are. And then we would move forward with that position. Are you talking about if there's not enough salary to make that position?
I think I'm talking more about a reclassifying an existing position. You reclassify it, it goes to a higher band. The person in that position, their existing salary is below the minimum of that band.
If their existing salary in the lower position is below the band, and we would need to move them up in the new classified position to be within that band, I would need to ensure that we have that budget within our existing budget.
Okay.
Sir.
Michael Bestian, 7 Adams Lane. So if a reclassification is made, does the person who's reclassified begin to be paid at the higher level immediately, or does it have to wait until town meeting approves it?
It would depend if there was budget availability. And I would never put someone in a position without funds to be able to pay them. That's not legal.
Thank you.
Arnie?
Arnie Price, Oak Hill Road. I'd like to move the question.
Okay, we have a motion to move the question. It's not debatable. It takes a 2/3 majority. Let's try a voice vote. All in favor of moving the question say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. That is definitely 2/3. So we're now at the underlying question. If you are in favor of this change to the personnel section of the general bylaw, you'll vote yes. If you're opposed, you'll vote no. Voting is now open. Five seconds and we'll close the vote. Okay, voting is now closed. The motion does not pass. 148 no to 46 yes. All right, folks, we have 4 more articles. It is 10:15. I'm just going to take a straw poll. How many people want to continue as opposed to coming back next Monday? How many people want to continue? Okay, clear majority. Under Article 9, I have a motion that the town accept the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 12D, which would allow the Select Board to approve a request from the holder of an existing license to sell wine and beer for on-premises consumption, to convert that license to one allowing the sale of all alcoholic beverages for on-the-premises consumption, subject to any other existing requirements. Is there a second to that motion? All right. Are there questions on this article? Okay, seeing none, we'll go right to the vote. This is a majority vote only. So if you're in favor of this, vote yes. If you're opposed, vote no. Voting is now open. See how much more efficient you became as soon as I said what time it was? Five seconds to close the vote. Okay, voting is now closed. The motion passes, 164 yes to 33 no. Under Article 10, I have a motion that the Select Board be authorized to enter into an agreement to obtain operation and/or maintenance services for the town's wastewater treatment plants for a period of up to 10 years. Is there a second to that motion? Any questions or comments about this article? Amazing. I should have told you what time it was earlier. All right, so we'll move right to the vote. If you're in favor of this article, authorizing the Select Board to enter into a 10-year contract for this purpose, vote yes. If you're opposed, vote no. Voting is now open. People are starting to throw their clickers. All right, 5 seconds. Voting is closed. The motion passes 176 yes to 18 no. Under Article 11, I have a motion that the town authorize the Select Board to enter into one or more leases for the use of any portion of the property of the Blanchard Middle School, including but not limited to the roof, parking lot, open land, or other suitable areas for solar panels for a period of up to 30 years, and to enter into a power purchase agreement for periods of up to 30 years for the purchase of solar energy generated by such facilities under the terms and conditions deemed appropriate by the Select Board. Is there a second to that motion? Sir, at the middle of the microphone.
Jim Gazzo, Carolina Lane. I have three real quick questions on this article. The first question is, the warrant and the motion uses the word storage with regards to something. It doesn't say what. Does it mean storage of electricity or storage of tools and equipment? That's one question.
Okay.
Second question is that the warrant also says that this photovoltaic array could go on open land. What open land? And the third question, there was a lease versus own analysis done. I'd like the results of that.
I'm sorry, say
a lease versus own. It came up at the League of Women Voters review of the warrant articles. Someone had asked that question, but the correct person to answer it wasn't present at the time.
Okay, got it.
It's a comparison of the costs associated.
Yes, so you're looking for the results of that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, got it. Thank you for your expediency. Mike Edwards.
Mike Edwards, Assistant Town Manager.
That's what it is.
Make sure I have these in order. So the first question was...
Storage.
What is the word storage of what? Most likely this would be, if it were part of the project, it would be battery storage. We don't know that that's actually going to be part of whatever we wind up doing.
I don't like that with it putting batteries possibly on top of the school.
It wouldn't necessarily be on top of the school.
I know, it wouldn't necessarily, but it could be. By the way it's written.
It could be, but the intent of this article is actually to preserve the flexibility to make a decision down the road. By the end of the calendar year. That's really what we're up against, is the expiration of the tax credits and essentially preserving the ability to enter into a long-term lease agreement, which would require town meeting approval. So this gives the authority to the board to make that lease decision. So the second question was open land?
Yes. It says it could go on open land.
Again, we don't know what the project would shape out to be. This gives us the flexibility if some portion of an installation occupied open land, whether it be equipment to facilitate a rooftop array, whether it was canopy, whether it was on open land on the Blanchard property, this would preserve
the question was what open land?
So you might need somebody
on the Blanchard parcel.
You might, wait, I think we might need somebody from the schools to answer that. The question is, what open land is available on the Blanchard School lot that might be used?
On the Blanchard Middle School lot, yes, sir.
Right, yes, that is the question. There's athletic fields, there's a parking lot, there's the roof of the building, and there's a heavily wooded area behind the school.
The highest probability for any installation is going to be on that roof. We wrote the article the way that we wrote it, simply to preserve flexibility. We may end up having some appurtenant pieces of equipment that are required to be off that roof. But again, until we actually get a defined project, we won't know exactly what that is, but we won't have the opportunity to come back to town meeting to get approval for a lease before the expiration of the tax credits, which essentially will make the project infeasible if we lose that 30% tax credit.
Okay, I like rooftop arrays as long as there's no storage batteries up there.
That is, most likely it will be rooftop units.
Without batteries, I hope.
Okay, and the third question was about the results of the...
Lease versus own.
They have not been completed yet. That is actually supposed to be getting in our hands within the next couple of weeks. And that's what we will bring first to Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee, and then to the Select Board for a recommendation.
So even if we approve Article 11 to lease for up to 30 years, you're not really interested in leasing?
You are authorizing the Select Board, if we bring a project forward that is deemed to be in the best interest of the town, to enter into that lease, simply because we won't have time to enter into a lease prior to the expiration of the federal tax credits, which expire at the end of December. So we're really trying to deal with a timing problem that we have.
All right, thank you.
At the microphone to the left.
Anita Bala from Meadow Lane. Quick question. Was there any particular reason Blanchard Middle School was chosen? Because there's a lot of open land in Westford that could have been, like Littleton has arrays in an open field away from schools, children, and are we going to be utilizing, if it is going to be open land, any of the land that the children are going to be using for sports, etc.?
Blanchard was selected primarily because we just completed a roof project there to make that roof solar ready. It had previously been identified as a site that would be optimal for solar. It's really the only site that we have right now that is ready to go right out of the box.
And is this solar going to be used for town and the residents, or just the town alone?
It would be the town. Essentially, the way a power purchase agreement would work is we would agree to purchase the power that this system generated at a predetermined rate that would be less than what we're paying now. So it'd be financially beneficial to the town.
But not for the residents?
No. I mean, yes, to some degree it would, obviously, by tax savings and expense savings. And then any additional power over what we consume would go on the grid and be available for purchase.
Okay, thank you.
At the center microphone.
Okay, Jim Garcia, 5 Rail Tree Terrace. I guess the first question, Blanchard Middle School is open. It's not an empty building, so they're going to be putting solar with a bunch of students.
I'm sorry, I'm not following you.
Is the Blanchard School open?
Yes.
Okay, so now you say you only want it on the roof, but you said you could have it any open field. You could cut down the trees and put one there, correct?
Well, again, the most likely installation that we would do on that building would be on the roof because it is ready for such an installation. But again, anything we brought, the select board and Clean Energy would have the ability to weigh in on exactly what that installation looked like.
Because these solar farms want acres and acres. They don't want one roof.
We are
absolutely
not looking at anything to that scale.
But you could.
Yeah, the site probably wouldn't support anything to that size. We've got room for probably...
It could fill the whole open area. By definition, you just said that.
Okay, I don't want to have a debate back and forth. Do you have another question?
So how are you going to get it? I thought to get a tax credit, you have to have the power on, not just set it to if I want to put solar on my roof, it's got to be on and running by the end of the year. You're saying you can get the rebate by?
Well, again, with a power purchase agreement, we would actually have the ability to safe harbor panels and accessories that the company that we would be entering the agreement with already has an inventory. So essentially, we're using their stock. We're able to essentially claim that, get our name on it. They claim the tax credit once we sign a lease.
But there's no power on it. When will the thing be installed?
I'm sorry?
When will it be installed?
Most likely, it would probably take up to 6 months to get an installation.
And the tax credit works if you install it next year?
Under a PPA arrangement, it would, simply because they already have those panels in inventory. It changes a little bit if we start looking at the option to do a town-owned system where we have to do the construction and own it. And if you look at the supporting materials that you were provided with the Warren article, there's an explanation of how some of those different things play out. What we're trying to do right now is not lose the ability to pursue a PPA if that is deemed to be the best and most feasible opportunity for us. We're going to know that within the next couple of weeks. We just didn't have that information now because they're doing that analysis.
So this is very open-ended. You're under the gun.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to let some other people ask questions. I'm not saying you can't go around to the back, but let's have some other people speak. The microphone to my right.
Ryan Clinton, 24 Flag Road. So this is written up very broadly, and as a parent of 3 students at Blanchard, there's a lot of space that could be consumed by the solar panels. You have to excuse my town meeting ignorance, but I would ask or make a motion to strike everything with the exception of the roof, to force this to be on the roof and not jeopardize space that the students use and space that parents use to try to park and navigate around the schools.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, what you're asking is that after it says to use any portion of the property at the Blanchard Middle School, specifically limited to the roof. something like that. Is there a second to that motion? Okay, sir, I am going to ask you to, you'll have to write that down. There are forms in the back if you want to use those, or you can mark up your motion. Yeah. Okay, so we now have a motion to amend that's been seconded to limit the solar panels and this motion to the roof. Bear with us one moment. We're consulting counsel. While we're waiting, does anyone want to address the motion to amend? Yes, Steve.
Steve Brierly, 16 Phillips Drive. I would argue against the amendment, particularly because, A, you want to maintain the flexibility, but another possibility, perhaps not as good as the roof, is covering the parking lot. There's an elementary school in Carlisle that does just that. It works fine. The parking lot underneath is still functional as a parking lot. You've used the real estate to generate solar power, and it seems like a win-win. So I would argue against limiting the flexibility that the town has in terms of how this is done.
Thank you. Do you want to, Mike, do you want to address the amendment?
Yes, well, and I would actually echo what the gentleman there just mentioned, because one of the things that we don't know is with the lease, we do not know where some of the accessories, such as inverters, other pieces of equipment, may need to be installed. If we pull everything but the roof off, we may completely remove the ability to do this project. What I would encourage is allow the public input portion and any concerns over the structure of the project and where particular installations may occur to vest with the board. There are going to be more opportunities to discuss how this project shapes once we have more information. Voice the concerns at that point. I don't think anybody is seriously considering wiping out the green space and putting panels up. We want to put a rooftop array on this school. And so what we need is a little bit of flexibility to do it in a way that makes sense for the project and can provide all the appurtenant structures that are necessary to build the installation.
George, did you want to speak to the amendment? Okay. Nate.
Thank you. Nate McKinnon, 8 Sherlock Lane. I just want to speak in opposition to the amendment. I think it would be too restrictive, and I fully trust the select board and our school committee to not make decisions that jeopardize our students and our kids, and I feel confident that they'll make the right decisions at the end of the day based on the best information available, and that's why we elect them. And to me, I think ensuring that flexibility is really important, especially with something like solar, and appreciate the opportunity to have more green energy. Thank you.
Arnie, did you want to speak to the amendment?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Seeing no other comments on the amendment, I'm going to move to the vote on that. So we're voting on whether or not to amend this motion to remove the words parking lot, open land, or other suitable areas and leave it restricted solely to the roof. Does everybody understand what we're voting on? This is just an amendment. All in favor of that amendment, please vote yes. If you're opposed, vote no. It's a simple majority. Voting is open. Five seconds and we'll close the voting. Voting's closed. The amendment does not pass. 22 yes, 157 no. Okay, we're now to the main motion. George, would you want to speak to that?
George Murray, 14 Haywood Road. I have an amendment to propose. on the second line of the opening paragraph, delete the word middle, so that it reads Blanchard School, not Blanchard Middle School, because Lord knows what the population of that building is going to be down the road. And I think it's consistent with the practice that we've had over the last several years of removing the descriptors from the building.
Okay, we have a motion to amend by removing the word middle from the second line where it says Blanchard Middle School, so that it'll just read Blanchard School. Is there a second to that amendment? Okay. Is there any discussion? Let's try and do a voice vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Nay. Oh, come on, guys.
Yeah, really.
All right, vote with your clickers. If you're in favor of the amendment, vote yes. If you're opposed, vote no. Give us a minute to set it up here, please. Yeah, you ready? This is a simple majority. Voting is open. Nice work. This is Nate's first town meeting. Baptism by fire. Five seconds and we'll close the vote. Voting is closed.
Okay, then.
The amendment fails, 112 no to 59 yes. All right, we are now at the main motion. Emily, did you want to speak to the main motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, please go ahead.
I am not speaking for myself now. I'm speaking for Westford Climate Action, of which I'm a member. And I just wanted to say that I am in favor of this article because basically it is getting more solar installations on our school roofs to save money in the long term and to decrease carbon emissions in town. And also, we are behind other towns in doing this. And this type of sustainability project is part of our roadmap 2050, which we need to be moving faster toward completing. So I definitely hope you will vote in favor of this article.
Arnie, did you want to speak to the article?
Yeah, Arnie Price, Oak Hill Road. So with all due respect, I heard a lot of ifs and probables, and we don't know that yet. And I would like to see something more definitive, I guess. And I know there's a process, and I respect that, but there's for me, is a lot of unknowns, and I can't support that if that's the case.
All right, seeing no further up. Okay, Alyssa?
Real quick, you already know who I am, so can I get a sense of what the finances around this are? I mean, what are we saving for tax credits? What's it going to do for us?
Okay, Mike Edwards.
Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, we don't have the financial analysis yet. We do know this will be done basically at no cost, but more than likely a significant financial benefit to the town. We won't enter into the agreement otherwise.
All right. Yes, sir.
Bernard Gilbert, 7 Lucille Avenue. This, to me, sounds like a blank check similar to a library. And I'm sorry, I have run companies, I've done many things, but a blank check is a no. Yeah. Yes. So that's my point of view.
Seeing no further comments? Oh, sorry. Okay. Christina Green.
Christina Green, Chair of the Finance Committee, but I'm speaking as a resident. We are long overdue to get a break on our electricity costs. This is what this will get us. We will be able to buy electricity off of those solar panels at a much reduced rate. There's no outlay of cash. We should be doing this. I know it seems like a very nebulous project. It is not. And there will be plenty of other times to see what the exact project is and give your input then. But if we don't do it soon, we're going to lose the federal tax credits and we're not going to save as much.
The center microphone, June.
June McMorrow, Kings Pine Road. So I appreciate the comment about the tax credits, although I think what you just said was you're not really sure what the actual financial benefit will be to us. Is there no possibility that there will be tax credits moving into 2026? This is only October 27th, right? I mean, what's the word from your people on Beacon Hill? From Washington.
Well, the word from Washington is essentially with the one big beautiful bill that they essentially eliminated this tax credit effective the end of December. So it's a 30% credit on the investment, the capital investment made, plus an accelerated depreciation on all of the infrastructure that goes in. Now, there's a couple of different pieces of the tax credit structure. The one that we're focused on right now is the one associated with doing a power purchase agreement. Now, if we choose to own panels, we may have some potential to see some tax credit, but we would have to have a project that is ready to get off the ground very, very quickly, and we don't know that's actually going to be possible. This is not entering into any specific agreement. This is preserving a decision that if we do not allow the board the authority to enter into a lease, we basically have no decision at that point. We have no opportunity to pursue these tax credits before they expire at the end of the year. We're preserving the ability to make a decision.
Thank you.
At the microphone to my left.
Alan McCash in Holzberg, Betty Lane. I have to say this is rather nebulous. You're asking us to support a potential 30-year lease with maybe some savings where we buy back the electricity and nobody can give us numbers. That just kind of seems odd. You know, we get estimated taxes for our homes. We get estimated bills from our electric companies at times. There's concrete information. Right now, we're being asked to blindly trust the select board, and I think it's a bad idea. I think if we want to support this, let's get some actual numbers. Let's tell the town what you're going to save by doing this, not just say, we'll save something.
Okay, I'm going to take the two people at the microphone and then we'll vote. Steve?
Steve Brierly, 16 Phillips Drive. There seems to be a lot of confusion about what's actually happening. What the town is entering into is a purchase power agreement. Okay? The man shaking, you said it's not a power purchase agreement?
We're not entering into anything at this point.
Well, no, but what you're proposing?
The option to enter into one, yes. This would leave that on the table for us.
What a purchase power, the reason I said that is we just did that. Okay, I got solar panels on my roof. We did a purchase power agreement. We paid nothing up front. The contract will list that we got, will list how much we were paying for the amount of power they're guaranteeing. We know that for the next 25 years. It is less, significantly less than what I'm paying now, or would have been paying now, to the electric company. So the ambiguity or the uncertainty is not are we going to pay more, it's how much less we will have to pay. That needs to be worked out in the contract, but there's no upfront cost, and there's only an upside. The question is how much upside, and that'll be negotiated in the contract.
Correct.
Heather, and that'll be the last comment.
Heather Fitzpatrick, Shannon Circle. Are you working with somebody currently? Because you've got 2 months to get it together.
I'm sorry, is that a question?
Yeah, I want to know if he's working with somebody currently, because if we've not identified, if there's a partner that you're currently in conversation with or not, it seems like 2 months wouldn't be enough time.
Yes, several town meetings ago, they did approve a contract with Amoresco to do an investment grade audit. This is one of the projects coming out of that. So we're working with Amoresco right now. They're doing these analyses right now. The urgency for us is really since the July release of what all of the changes to the tax credits were going to be. We are just now learning a lot of the impacts of how it actually impacts the our ability to get something off the ground in time to qualify for the tax credit, and who gets the tax credit.
So is Amoresco, would they be the person doing this, or
Yes.
would they be with a third party?
Amoresco would be the solar developer.
All right, let's move to the vote. This is a simple majority vote. If you want to vote in favor of allowing the option for the select board to enter into such an agreement as we've been discussing, vote yes. If you want to vote against it, vote no. Voting's now open. Okay, 5-second warning. Voting is closed. The motion passes 139 yes to 42 no. Under Article 12, I have a motion that the town vote to accept DiDonato Drive as laid out by the Select Board as a town public way pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 82, and as shown on a plan entitled Street Acceptance Plan in Westford, Massachusetts, DiDonato Drive, on file with the town clerk, and further to authorize the Select Board to acquire by purchase, gift, or eminent domain an easement in said way for all purposes for which public ways are used and maintained. Is there a second to that motion? Is there any discussion of this? Yes, sir.
Kishore, 56 Pleasant Street. Look for more information about this article on motion, but there is a less information available on a website. So when you say that General Laws Chapter 82, so under 82 there are 42 sections. Under which section the town has been selecting this drive to be in a public? And the second question is, why only this drive? So for last several years, like last 6-7 years, we have a new drives or new streets, new communities, but they were assigned as a private, but not as a public. But what is the difference between this and the existing
Okay,
private?
can we have someone explain the process for bringing a street forward for town acceptance and why DiDonato Drive was brought forward?
Sure. Kristen Last, the town manager, I may rely on the land use department if I misstep here, but anytime a new roadway is constructed with new frontage, it goes through the subdivision process. If the roadway meets our subdivision rules and regulations and standards, it can be accepted as a public way. It's ultimately the developer's decision if they would like it to be developed as a public way or not. If the roadway is built to subpar standards, we as a town cannot accept that as a public way. So DiDonato Drive was permitted through the subdivision process with the planning board, complies with our subdivision rules and regulations. The developer has asked town meeting to accept this as a public way. The land use department and the engineering department have done their various reviews and approved that this could be accepted as a public way by town meeting. And if it is approved, we would then begin to maintain the roadway, plowing it this winter, maintaining the stormwater, and maintaining the other areas that would be public.
So what is the benefit that town gets making this as a public way?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
What's the benefit for the town?
So the benefit of the town residents who live on the way is that they do not have to pay a separate contractor to plow their roadway or to maintain the stormwater basins. So the town would absorb that within their DPW program for plowing, maintenance, and the like.
But the other private ways where the developer is developing those ways, I mean the communities, is that the community has to come to the town and apply for that? Because this is kind of a discrimination. You are taking one street as a newly come up street as a public way, but the other which came after that, you are not accepting as a public way.
If there is a private way and the residents would like to petition to the town to create that as a public way, there is a process to go through with the select board to bring that way up to public way standards and then for that acceptance.
Okay, at the center microphone.
Just very quick, Ryan Rawls, 62 Providence Way. This particular road has some small businesses on it that people would use, such as a gym that just recently opened. So there is a benefit to having the town plow it for other people besides people who live there.
All right, seeing no further questions, we'll take a vote on this. If you want to vote yes to approve Di Donato Way as a public way, you vote yes. If you want to vote against that, vote no. Voting is now open. This is a majority vote, a simple majority. Five-second warning. Okay, voting is closed. The motion passes. The vote is 142 yes to 16 no. Article 13 is a citizen's petition. Under Article 13, I have a motion that the town vote to authorize the select board to petition the general court to grant an all-alcoholic beverages license for the sale of such beverages to be consumed off the premises at Main Street Convenience, located at 103 Main Street. This license would replace the wine and malt beverages license currently held by the business. Is there a second under Article 13? The owners of this business, Dinesh Patel and his son Arjun Patel, would like to address the meeting to explain the reason behind the petition. They're both residents of Littleton, so they won't be able to speak unless you give them permission to do so. Do I have a motion to that effect? Is there a second? All right, this is a 2/3 vote. Let's try and do a voice vote. All in favor of allowing the owners of this property to briefly speak on the motion, please say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Wonderful. Mr. Dinesh Patel and his son Arjun Patel, the owners of the business, are going to very briefly tell us why they're here.
Good evening. My name is Arjun Patel and I have my dad Dinesh here with me. We have owned and operated Main Street Convenience for the past 7 years. We currently have a malt and wine license.
Arjun, speak slower.
Yep.
And move closer to the microphone.
We have owned and operated Main Street Convenience for the past 7 years. We currently have a malt and wine license and we're looking to expand that to include all alcoholic beverages. This petition would allow the town to request one additional alcohol off-premise license from the state. The license will remain fully under the town's control and if approved, would allow us to offer a selection of all alcoholic beverages, beer, wine, and spirits. Aside from just being able to offer spirits, we'll be able to offer ready-to-drink beverages and hard seltzers that contain spirits like High Noons and Sun Cruisers. We will continue to be a convenience store. We will remain a friendly neighborhood spot where families feel comfortable and kids can still come after school to meet up, grab a snack or a soda. And that's something that we don't want to change. This is just step one of the process. By voting yes, this will allow the town to request an additional license from the state. This is one of many steps to fully obtain an alcoholic beverage, and the town will still very much be in control of this license. Thank you.
Thank you for your efficiency in speaking. All right, are there any questions or comments about this? Seeing none, we'll move right to the vote. Vote yes if you want to approve this. Vote no if you want to vote against it. Voting is now open. 5-second warning. Voting is closed. The motion passes 120 yes to 39 no. This concludes the business of the 2025 special town meeting. Thank you for your help, your time, and your participation in this very direct form of government. I feel very privileged to be a part of this here in Westford. We don't always agree, but we meet, we discuss, we question, and then we accomplish the business of the town without resorting to insults or memes. In this day and age, that's something to be proud of, all of you. If you have any suggestions, please contact me. Feel free for any improvements or any suggestions to town meeting. We have a motion to adjourn, please. Is there a second? All in favor of adjourning? All opposed? We are adjourned.